Holy crap.
People persist in doubting the evidence.
Don't run and hide. Don't be afraid. Don't turn away any longer. The truth will set you free. You're listening to Jimmy Church Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
We're turning all of our antennas towards Jimmy Church on Dark Matter Radio.
And now, your host, the captain of conspiracy, the prince of paranormal. This ain't your daddy's radio network show. This is Jimmy Church Fade to Black.
All right, let's go. Let's go already. Oh, man. I missed you guys. That was a long week. So much stuff happened. I mean, wow. One night, you guys are going to have to beg me for this story, but one night, I will tell you about the Sunday night, evening at the House of Blues in Hollywood, Sunset Boulevard, when it was, let's just say, I'm going to stay politically correct here. We showed up for dinner, and it turned out to be the alternative relationship night with the Rainbow Coalition. Oh my, and a bunch of out-of-town guests. I'll tell that story one night. You guys will have to really just beg me, but it's a good one. Welcome everybody. This is Fade to Black, the Wednesday edition. Yeah, so glad to be back in the hot seat. Bespoke radio for the masses. How you doing? Happy World UFO Day. That's right. Today's Wednesday, July 2nd. We are 171 days into the new year. We are live from the JP Motorsports Studios right here in sunny Burbank, California. For KJCR and the Dark Matter Radio Network, I am your host, Jimmy Church. Let's get this one cracking. Are you ready? I said, Happy World UFO Day. Kind of strange. You wake up and it's that day, and how they pull that one off. Yeah, Roswell, New Mexico. You know it's cracking out there this weekend. You know it's July 4th weekend out of Mac Brazel's ranch. Yeah. Next year this time, everybody, all of you Fadernauts out there, let's pack up, man. Let's go to Roswell. Let's go to that museum. Get an alien shake. I heard they're green. Big salute to all the proud men and women in uniform all around the world fighting the good fight for us. Without them, there is no me, there is no you. There is no us, and you couldn't hear me right now. And I really, really, really want you to think about that for a second. Today, actor, comedian, producer, Larry David turned 67 years old. Curb Your Enthusiasm, Seinfeld. Forget that new movie he's got out about him being the internet guru designer guy. It was pretty hilarious. Love Larry David. And again, every time I do a birthday on the show, it means something. And again, it's all about the twisted mind of church. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, at JChurchRadio, hashtag DMRadioNet, if you want to go hang out with all the other Fadernauts. And I see it now, hashtag Fadernaut. I'm looking at it. And that if that's what you guys want to use, you've got my approval. I think that's actually pretty good. Fader is a deep meaning in the audio business, in radio, audio. It's cool. Not Fade or not. There it is. All right. So all you Fadernauts out there, follow us on Facebook. Facebook has really been trending really well lately. I don't know where these numbers come from. I'm appreciative and completely humbled. Completely. Twitter, I put the word out. Come on, let's go. This show it's so much bigger than our Twitter follower numbers. All right. Yeah, if you're following us on Twitter right now, I'll grovel right now. Just send it out. Follow J Church Radio. All of my buddies follow J Church Radio. I'm on a mission with a couple of social media companies that we're working with really closely right now to get the word out a little bit more on the show. And everything looks so good. YouTube, Facebook, the numbers on the show, and then they go to Twitter. They're like, what the heck? That doesn't make any sense. Twitter's tough, man. It's tough. All right. Hashtag DM Radio Net at JChurch Radio. And it's what's funny. It's what all of us use the most. More than email now. Everybody tweets. Everybody tweets. All right, my Fadernauts. Let's go. Let's get this cracking. Tonight we're going to have open lines. I'll be taking your calls. We will be taking your calls tonight. Dr. Lynne Kitei in the house from Phoenix, the Phoenix Lights incident. And I don't know if I'll mention this to her tonight, but I think I mentioned it to her earlier this week or last week. But I used to, and I've got a lot of friends in Phoenix. I used to travel to Phoenix every other week for about 7 years. And it was, on music stuff, but, just jump on the Southwest out of Burbank, boom, and would go to Phoenix every 2 weeks. I would stay at the Sheridan Crescent out there at Dunlop in the 17. Place became my second home, and I'm not kidding. And that's a lot of trips over 7 years. And I love Phoenix. Phoenix is great, except for the summertime. You've never felt heat like that. Las Vegas is air conditioned compared to Phoenix in the summertime. And anybody that lives there that's listening to me right now, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And don't ever say dry heat. Man, that is murderous. 4 o'clock in the morning, 120 degrees outside. No joke. But that night of the Phoenix Lights, I had gotten back from Phoenix, and I walk into my condo, and I want somebody to check on this, and I'll ask her this tonight. But this is what my memory tells me. I went in, put my bags down, turn on the lights, getting everything going at the pad, and I turn on the TV, and the news is on. The 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock news that evening. And right on the screen is the Phoenix Lights, and they're talking about it. That it happened the night before, and I was there, and I didn't see a thing. And I'm telling you right now, didn't see it, didn't hear about it. Nobody talked about it. I didn't know, and I flew back to L.A. I come in, and I see this, and I thought, how could I miss that? But that's what my memory says. So I think I got back on a Friday. It may have been a Saturday, but I think I got back on a Friday, which would mean that the Phoenix Lights happened on a Thursday night. If my brain is correct. Could be wrong. Maybe it happened on a Wednesday night. All I know is I saw it on the news when I got back at the end of my weekly trip to Phoenix. And and I missed it. I absolutely missed it. So there you go. I was there, and I missed the Phoenix Lights. That would have been really cool. All right. So anyway, we will be taking your calls tonight. 323-825-5045. You can email throughout the show, Jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. You know what to do. Simple enough. You can also do it over the website. Just go over to the contact page where we use non-NSA, specially encrypted converters, servers. And we basically do that for Lou Sheehan, but that's another story. How you doing, Lou? All right. Contact in the Desert contest. Hey. Guess what? We have some new winners tonight. Before we get to that, and I'm going to do it right now so you can relax. Over at jimmychurchradio.com, You can hear my voice right now. So head over to jimmychurchradio.com. You got it bookmarked. Scroll down. There it is. Contact in the Desert. You just click on the poster. Takes you over to, I'm clicking right now just to make sure everything is cool. Head over to the Fade to Black Contact in the Desert page. Scroll down. Enter. It's right there. Come and join us. August 8th, we will be broadcasting live that Friday evening from Joshua Tree, Contact in the Desert, from the event center, right there. Oh, I've got another announcement I'm going to make tonight, too, by the way, I think. We'll see. Everybody's going to be there. Sukalos, David Wilcock, Stephen Greer, Eric Von Daniken. The Von is there to separate him from all the other Danikens out there. And Stan Friedman is supposed to be there. And our thoughts are with you, Stan. You had a heart attack earlier this week. And the latest news is that it wasn't as serious as everybody thought. Thank goodness. But that kind of shocked the world into thinking about how mortal we all are, because that guy is getting ready to turn 80 and still doing it. Was going to have him on the show last week. And the thing is with Stan, you can call him up, get him on the phone and go, Stan, you want to come on the show in 10 minutes? Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the way he is. He's as gracious as anybody I have ever met. Threw me into just, but he's okay. And I think he'll be home very soon. But Stan's supposed to be there too. Michael Tellinger, Jim Mars, Jesse Marcel, Stephen Bassett, who we're going to have on the show tomorrow night, actually, Richard Dolan, John Anthony West. So you've got to come and hang out with us. Marshall Klarfeld, Dr. Lynne Kitei. There's a coincidence for you. Go and join, or go and enter, go and join. Go and enter and come hang out with us. And if you've never won anything, it's about time. All right, so look at it that way. All right? So do you guys want to know the winners? You guys want to know who the winners are? Here we go. We have 3 to announce tonight. Are you ready? Hold on. Drum roll. And the winners are Darcy Lund. L-U-N-D. Darcy Lund. Congratulations. You are going to Contact in the Desert. Darcy Lund. We will be contacting you, Darcy, via email, Facebook. We're going to make the announcement, and we will probably, post your picture and do our best to embarrass you publicly. But you have won. Next, the winner is Thomas Peak. Tomas Peak. P-E-E-K. Thomas Peak, you. Congratulations. You are going to Contact in the Desert. That is a 4-day, $400 pass. That is no joke. And last, number 3 tonight. And the winner is, hold on, Sandra Rios. Sandra, congratulations. You are coming with us. You're going to come hang out at Contact in the Desert. Going to come on the show with us that Friday night. We're going to go hang out with Stephen Greer. And, hey, Steve said, hey, come on, man. Come on stage. Let's contact something. I can't wait. I'll track one of the winners up there, too. Break out the laser. That's right, Contact in the Desert. We will be announcing the next round of winners next week. Congratulations, Darcy Lund, Thomas Peak, and Sandra Rios. Man, that is so cool. Now, all 3 of you, if you are listening right now, Darcy, Thomas, Sandra, call into the show tonight. 323-825-5045. Call into the show. We would love to hear from you. All right. Wow, that's cool. I like doing that. Wish I could do that every night. Give away about $50,000 worth of tickets. I would do it, though. That is cool. That gives me a good feeling. Next week, we'll do the next round. All right. I want to get to a little bit of email, and then I've got a couple of news stories. And, again, running behind. How do we do it, man? I don't get it. Email from Ben. I'm counting on you to have some great shows this week, as you usually do anyway, to help distract me from thinking about the storm that is barreling down on us tonight and tomorrow night. Looking forward to all three shows. Ben, I will do the best that I can, my brother. And our thoughts are with you. It's no joke. That's kind of weird. Not only those storms, but, it's July 4th weekend, man. Out of all the weekends, you don't care about Thanksgiving weekend. You don't care about New Year's weekend or Christmas. Doesn't matter. July 4th, it's supposed to be sunny and barbecue. That's all it's about. All right, another email. Oh, this one came in from Lou right before the show. Lou, I just had to read this. This comes in from Lou. He says, I won tickets. The staff at DMR Radio told me I won tickets for a cruise to the Bermuda Triangle. Congratulations, Lou. And let me know who you're going to take with you. I think Romero wants to go meteor hunting or something. Another email. Now check this out. This is I saw the tweets go out about this right before the show. Church rant tonight. If you go over to Jimmy Church Radio, scroll down, go to the homepage, scroll down. I posted a picture under church rant, and I am actually going there now myself. So I've got to see this picture again to believe it. This is the email that came with the picture, and I, of course, asked for permission to post the said image. This is the email. Again, everybody just go over to the homepage, Jimmy Church Radio, scroll down, Church Rant, next to Mirage Man, Church Rant. You know where it's at. Click on that image. It's a sonogram. This is the email from Richard. My niece has been experiencing extreme poltergeist activity in her house, doors slamming, water running, noises, etc. My niece is also pregnant and went for her baby scan. Now, look at the attached file and look at the face. Not on the baby, but on the top right-hand side. Is that strange and evil or what? End of email. Now go look at that picture. And her name is Shauna. Shauna, I hope everything is healthy, everything is great, and all of that. So now that I've said that, that's my disclaimer. I've seen sonograms. I've got kids. And you can never, I don't care who you are, unless you're a professional in the medical industry, you can never tell what a sonogram shows you. Is it a boy or a girl? I can't tell. You can't tell? No, I can't. Is it a baby? I can't tell. That's what it is. But then you look at this and check that picture out. I'm gonna enlarge it really quick. We can look at this together. That's nuts. I don't know what that is. Well, I know what it looks like, but I'm not going to say it out loud. It's too creepy. Reminds me of that movie from 1972. But that's a crazy picture. That is nuts. And I don't know what to say, but there are definitely two faces in that picture and one that doesn't belong. And that is strange. That is truly strange. So there you go. That came in from Richard. Richard, give our best to Shauna. I'm sure everything's going to be fine and healthy. And that is just some kind of strange anomaly. But whatever it is, that picture is crazy. And crazy enough, I think we're going to put it on the website too. That's pretty nuts. All right. So with that, all right, you know what? Let's take our first break. This is Fade to Black. Congratulations. I mean, how cool is it to win something? It's just absolutely brilliant. Congratulations, Darcy, Thomas, and Sandra. You're going to Contact in the Desert. You're going to hang out with us. This is Fade to Black, the Wednesday edition. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Dark Matter Radio Network. At JChurchRadio. Hashtag DMRadioNet. Shoot me an email, Jimmy@JimmyChurchRadio.com. I'll be back with some news right after this. Stay with us, everybody. Don't touch that mouse.
You're listening to Jimmy Church Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
What's up, revolutionaries? It's me, Jimmy Church. Do you have an IRS or state tax issue? Well, I did, and I called national tax experts. My problems were fixed, done, fini, and man, I gotta tell you, it was a relief. National Tax Experts are a recognized tax office that services clients in all 50 states. It doesn't matter where you live. Give them a call. I'm telling you, they take the time to understand each and every client's individual financial status as well as their financial goals. And that's exactly what you need, my brother, when you're taking on the evil three-letter. So, seriously, give them a call today at 1-877-909-5444. Again, 1-877-909-5444, or go check out their website, www.nattaxexperts.com. That's NATTAXEXPERTS.com. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
On the Dark Matter Radio Network.
All right. Let's just get straight to it. Tonight we have Dr. Lynne Kitei talking about the Phoenix Lights. Tomorrow night, Stephen Bassett and PRG. Friday, a special 4th of July show with Adam Gorightly. And I got to tell you, that's going to be a show. It's going to be a 4th of July show. So if you're going to spend some time with us on the 4th of July, you're going to want to do it with Adam Gorightly. It's going to be great. And, okay, really quick, I'm just going to spend a little few seconds on this issue about what everybody has been reading and hearing about Lee Spiegel and this show and myself in particular about this feud that's going on. So that's about it. That's all I'm really going to say, in that Coast to Coast has mentioned the Malibu base probably 4 out of the last 5 nights on the air. That's cool. One of the nights it got a little dark. And the dust up around the web, okay, it did what it did. I can't control that. I didn't listen to the show. I have no idea. I have not been in touch with Mr. Spiegel until yesterday or the day before about this. And he was going to come on the show tonight and explain what his position and what's been going on. And there's a storm on the East Coast. So he called and said he couldn't do it. And he would like to come on the show tomorrow night for a few minutes and talk to us. So we will put that issue to bed, at least for tonight, and we'll have Lee on the show tomorrow night. Okay? So before anybody tweets or sends an email or any more email, I can't tell you. I thank you, everybody that did send an email, by the way. It came in by the bucket load in response to that, and Facebook and everything else. So, but that's it. That's all I'm going to say on the issue. And tomorrow night we will have Mr. Spiegel on to put things right. Okay, so moving on from that, where was I going next? I had something cool. You know what? It doesn't matter. There was an article that came out, and it's a blog, and it was posted by Lauren Coleman, one of the coolest cryptozoologists out there. and somebody that I would love to have on the show. And I think we've actually talked about it. And now that I'm thinking about it, we should get Lauren on here in the next couple of days to talk about this blog. And the blog, and it's on Twilight Language. And I think I can get the post up for it because it's a Blogspot blog, but it's called Twilight Language. And they explore the hidden meanings of different things. They touch on everything. But this is crazy. This is about June 24th and the deaths of ufologists. And I didn't want to talk about this. He posted this on June 22nd. I didn't want to go there. I didn't want to mention June 24th. I didn't want to talk about it. And that week of shows came and went, and I just let it go because I don't want to jinx on anything, including me. I'm not putting myself in class of ufologists because you need a pedigree to fall into that. I haven't written a book or anything. But still, right? Now check this out. June 24th. And the list of mysterious deaths is so long and crazy. I'm just going to bust a few of these out. And you tell me if there's a connection. June 24th, 1908. Grover Cleveland. Why is that significant? Because 2 days later was the Tunguska event. 1971, UFO author Otto Binder claimed at least 137 UFO investigators had died under mysterious circumstances during the 1960s. And that's when everything started to kind of surface. But it was all tied to specific dates. Okay? John Keel, 2009, June 24th. June 24th, 1964, Frank Scully. He was the author of, the first UFO book. June 24th, 1967. Both British UFO contactees, Arthur Bryant and Richard Church. Check that out. June 24th, 1969. Willie Ley, the rocket scientist and Fortean author. June 23rd, 1967. Frank Edwards, popular UFO author, radio personality. He died a few hours before Bryant. It's crazy. James Moseley, June 24th, died at the Hotel Commodore. June 24th death that was kind of strange was Robert Charot, best known pen name of Robert Joseph Grugeau. He died June 24th, 1978. He was the one that wrote on ancient astronauts before von Daniken. He wrote that book, Lost Worlds. And if you've ever wanted to read something really cool on the subject, go pick that one up. But it's one death after another. Jackie Gleason. We all know what happened to Jackie and Richard Nixon. And Jackie went out after, supposedly meeting ETs in Florida and went and built a UFO house. Jackie died on June 24th. UFO writer Frank Edwards, publisher of Lyle Stewart, died of a heart attack June 24th, 2006. June 24th, 2013. The rocket scientist, computer scientist, and author that wrote After the Internet, Alien Intelligence, came out in 2000, James Martin Press, or author James Martin Press, 79 years old, June 24th. Devo, Alan Myers, member of Devo, he died on June 24th. But check this out. His studio, the Devo studio, was called UFO Studios. And now I want to thank Lauren Coleman for this. The list goes on and on and on. We're out of time. But I'll post this. And Lauren helped with Nick Redfern's new book, Close Encounters of the Fatal Kind, Suspicious Deaths, Mysterious Murders, and Bizarre Disappearances in UFO History. And they put this list together and posted the blog. So thank you, Nick. Nick was on that other show last week, and that's why he couldn't do this one. So I'm reading this article. There you go. I'm ready. It's the bottom of the hour. The time is near. Time is nigh. Let's do this. Tonight. It's going to be great. Seriously. Tonight, Lynne Kitei talking about the Phoenix Lights. Tomorrow, Stephen Bassett and PRG. Then on Friday, 4th of July special, Adam Go Rightly. Tweet right now at JChurch Radio, hashtag DMRadioNet. This is Fade to Black. I'm Jimmy Church on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Dark Matter.
Dark Matter. Dark Matter. Dark Matter. Dark Matter.
You're listening to Fade to Black
on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Fade to Black, Wednesday edition. I just got notice from the producers here that the link for the June 24th UFO deaths, ufologist, has been posted. So go check it out over at jimmychurchradio.com. It's going to be a great week of radio here on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Tonight, Dr. Lynne Kitei. Tomorrow night, Stephen Bassett and PRG. And then Friday, the 4th of July special with Adam Go Rightly. And it's just a pleasure to do the show and hang out with everybody. But right now, I just want to get straight to it. Dr. Lynne Kitei is an internationally acclaimed physician and health educator who pushed aside her successful medical career to pursue the Phoenix Lights book and internationally award-winning documentary project. She was leading the cutting-edge era of early disease detection and prevention as chief clinical consultant of the Imaging Prevention Wellness Center at the world-renowned Arizona Heart Institute in Phoenix, Arizona, until coming forward after 7 years of anonymity as a key witness to the historic and still unexplained mass sighting throughout Arizona on March 13th, 1997. Dr. Lynn graduated with a Bachelor's of Science degree in Secondary Science Education with minors in Communication and Voice from Temple University in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1970, and an MD degree from Temple University School of Medicine in 1974. She completed her postgraduate studies at the Medical College of Pennsylvania. I would like to welcome to the program Dr. Lynne Kitei. Doctor, how are you this evening?
I'm terrific. And by the way, it's Lynne Kitei, like a key and a tie.
You know, it's funny. You and I talked about that this week, and I still blew it, didn't I?
No, that's okay. Believe me, if you got it right, I would have been surprised. That's why I go under Dr. Lynn. I've been called that since I started my medical communications in 76, actually, in Philadelphia. I was doing health reporting for NBC in Philadelphia with Jessica Savage. In the 70s, and then syndication grew from that and started here, and they were already showing it in Phoenix when we moved here in 1980 and worked with NBC here and then USA Cable, doing health reporting as well. And by the mid-80s, we're seeing kids drowning in substance abuse in the practice, and I have to tell you, it really woke me up that it really needed something to wake them up to the reality of substance abuse. And I started my own company, Health Education Learning Programs, to produce video and workbook curriculums for the classroom on vital health issues like AIDS and teen pregnancy and substance abuse prevention education. And I have to tell you, Jimmy, that's why it's so ironic that this fell in my lap and I had no interest or knowledge at all in the topic when my husband, who's also a physician, and I had a very close sighting to our home in 1995, 2 years before the mass sighting. And I happened to get 35 millimeter photographs, and 2 years later the mass sighting happened. And there is so much to this story and so much mis and disinformation out there that, as you mentioned at the top, after the mass sighting, when thousands of people saw what I had been seeing and documenting on film, I really felt obliged to get to the bottom of it and find a logical explanation and push my whole medical career aside, actually, for 4 years, to try to find a logical explanation. I've yet to find it 17 years later, but I ended up with a 750-page journal that I didn't know what to do with. Of such compelling data, and we can get into the details of that if you'd like, but the bottom line is, coming from the background that in vital health issues, I really felt it was too important not to share this vital issue.
Well, you just touched upon it, so if you don't mind, I would like to touch upon it a little bit. Let's back up. When you just referred to, you had no interest or knowledge of the subject until all of this happened. So what was your childhood like? Were your parents, were they open-minded? Was there ever any discussions of this growing up? And what was that like?
Not at all. I have to tell you, I was so busy not only going to school and being in professional musical theater, national touring companies with Gordon McRae in Oklahoma and Betty Grable and Guys and Dolls, and understudied Barbara Eden in Sound of Music, and actually was in Alice in Wonderland on Broadway with Sherman Hemsley of the Jeffersons, and a whole host of other things growing up. So I was really a little too busy to even think about this topic at all. And but on the other side, we can get into this if you'd like. I did have a near-death experience as a child, which, interestingly enough, and this is just an aside, a number of people who saw the Phoenix Lights also had their near-death experiences as children reawakened by the Phoenix Lights experience. And that set me on a whole new road to try to find a connection between all unexplained phenomena that I lay out pretty simply in the book. But it is a fascinating study, and I had no idea that other university-based scientists and professors were actually studying the connection between near-death experience and out-of-body experience and unexplained aerial phenomena, what I call an unexplained phenomena, because the experience is very similar. And I'm going to be talking about this at the Contact in the Desert conference coming up in August. But the after effect is what's most profound, the awakening, the enlightenment, the profound positive transformation that takes place within an individual who really experiences an up experience. And we can get into that if you like. But anyway, getting back to your question, just really too busy, and then going to medical school, of course, and doing my community work, and which I've been doing for almost 40 years now, and community education of vital health issues. And I have to say too that there was so much, and we deal with this in the film, in our award-winning documentary, that there is so much fear out there and threat, being just, we're inundated with that, so that when we do finally see something or experience something that is an extraordinary out-of-our-box experience, some people really get frightened by it. In fact, that's what happened with the mass sighting, if I can get to that, which is very interesting in real time and long-term changes in people, transformation in people. Because for anybody out there that doesn't know about the Phoenix Lights, can I tell them about that a little bit?
Well, actually, we're going to let's actually build this up a little bit more linearly, because you had your original photographs that you had taken off of your back porch. So, or shall I say, backyard, or your backyard setup. I think porch is the wrong way to put it, but
front balcony, actually.
Yeah, that's it. So everybody we've got a gallery posted up, and these are some very, very, very famous pictures. They've definitely everybody is very familiar with the photography that you had taken, and so.
Well, if they're not, it's beautifully laid out. Thank you so much for doing that, because we can really get into that, because it is amazing what happened actually and how this transpired. Because again, I had no interest or knowledge in the topic at all, and here we live mountainside in Paradise Valley, which is we're pretty high up on the mountain and have a panoramic view of the city skyline. So we're quite familiar with what planes look like, and helicopters and streetlights and car lights and so forth. And we're also nestled in the mountain range. So what we saw, there is no way, this is a no-fly zone. And it's dangerous for them to fly this area, actually, because of the mountains. But the night before my birthday, and there's a lot of coincidences. I have come not to believe in coincidence, but I'm just going to share that as a little aside. My husband was standing at our wall. One wall of our bedroom is a window, and suddenly he calls me out of the bath, get over here quick. And I always go back to this sighting in 95, 2 years before the mass sighting, because we saw these anomalous aerial phenomena up close and personal. And we're talking just less than 100 yards from our home. There were 3 amber orbs in a pyramid formation about 50, 75 feet off of a very treacherous downslope of the mountain.
Now, these are in the photographs that we have in the gallery. These would be the last 2 in the bottom row, correct?
Well, actually, let me start out with the first one, because let me get that up. The first picture there shows the topography, and if you're not on your site, this is also on the photo page in the PhoenixLights.net, the Phoenix Lights Network website. I wanted to show people the view from our balcony, so you can really get a feel for it, because there's some other serendipitous things that happened with that as well. But
so is this looking south?
This is looking south,
okay,
towards the airport.
Right.
And the left mountain is South Mountain, and some miles back are the Estrella Mountain ranges. That's number 1.
So Lincoln Road is like right below your house?
Not far. Not far.
Right.
And actually, you can see a car on the road there. And I put that picture there because you can see how the light reflects outside from the car lights.
Right.
And also to the right of that, there's actually a row of skylights in a home down the street,
yep,
which you'll see consistently in the picture. So it gives you a taste of the topography. But just getting back to and that's where South Mountain and the Estrellas intersect, if you can see that. Okay.
Now, how close are you to Jordy Hormel's compound from this show?
Not far.
Right.
2 miles away.
Right.
2 miles away.
Yeah.
Actually.
See, I know Phoenix pretty good. You like that?
Yeah,
Are you impressed?
Yeah. I am impressed.
Hey, that Jordy Hormel.
Go ahead.
That Hormel pad, that compound is
that's huge.
Yes, that's huge. Okay. So now,
but anyway, so what's interesting is that 6 months before the mass sighting, and I want to share this because, if I may, because this is so part and parcel of the whole Phoenix Lights experience, and important to raise awareness that indigenous cultures are very open to these phenomena, and they have been for centuries. And what was interesting, I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually invited 6 months before the mass sighting to present my substance abuse prevention education program to the Gila Bend Indian Reservation, which is actually in the basin in between South Mountain and the Estrellas. And after the mass sighting, I started looking at my photographs and became aware that these phenomena kept popping up in that area, so I gave them a call. And they usually don't share with outsiders, but I had, become friendly with them and helped them out, and they were very forthcoming. And I called up and I said, did anybody happen to see strange lights on March 13th? And they started to giggle. And I said, is that funny? And they said, are you kidding? We've been looking up at them for centuries. We call them sky people, light beings. And it's part of their culture. They welcome them. In fact, the Hopi right here in Arizona have protocols to invite these phenomena in. And they shared with me as well that there are petroglyphs right on South Mountain and the Estrellas that are identical, not only to what my husband and I saw right outside our bedroom window, which I'll get to, orbs in a pyramid formation.
And South Mountain is right on the other side of Tempe, correct?
Well, actually, it's just south of the airport.
Just south of the airport. I had some friends of mine tell me about those petroglyphs on South Mountain when we were in Tempe, and they were saying it's right down the road, man. If you want to go check these out,
right, it's amazing, and they also have the boomerang there as well, which is really interesting. But what's even more interesting is that's how the Estrellas got its name. I had no idea. The Spaniards of the day heard these stories about these orbs that would frequent these mountain ranges, and they named the mountain range the Estrellas, meaning star in Spanish. And what's even more profound is that they believe in that area that there is a portal or a gateway in that area. And if you look at my pictures, and I'm not saying there definitely is, but if you look at the photographs, you'll see that they consistently these phenomena consistently pop up in that area. But at any rate, going back to the 95 sighting, I rushed to the window, and here we both see these orbs about 50, 75 feet off the ground, and this is behind a gated private home. And I looked underneath to see if anybody was there, and it was totally black, but I didn't move, and you'll find this happens with people over and over again when they see something extraordinary. And people say, "Well, why didn't people get cameras?" Well, you don't move. You don't know how long it's going to last. And for me, I tried to take everything in mentally: the size, the shape, the color. They were about 3 to 6 feet each. They were oval shaped, like an egg on its side, and there were 3 distinct objects, one on top and 2 closely aligned underneath. And the color within each orb, and I call it an orb because the light did not extend outside the edge. It was self-contained, and it was a uniform amber color throughout. It was just mesmerizing, beautiful, and it didn't glare at all. I have to tell you, I noticed that immediately. Every other light out there glared, house lights, car lights, street lights. These did not glare. And I thought to myself, if I don't get a picture of this, nobody's going to believe it. And I go running to the closet to grab my 35 millimeter camera, which I have handy to take the beautiful sunsets. I collect sunsets here. And my husband calls me back and he says, "Get over here quick. One of them is disappearing." And as we watch, and again, I always go back to this sighting because it's just so ingrained in my brain, the top orb, without budging. Now, we had 2 sons, okay, that we did watch Star Trek, and because it was wonderful messages. And the only thing that popped in my head while I was watching this, because I was trying to see if it moved or if it wavered like the Romulan cloaking device,
right.
But it seemed like it was cloaking. It was like a dimmer switch. It was mechanical, like there was an intelligence behind it. It started getting smaller very slowly. Smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller till it was a pea size and then disappeared. But I have to admit, and I did not admit this to anyone until after the mass sighting, that it seemed like it was still there, even though we didn't see it anymore. Where did it go? Okay, so we're getting maybe interdimensional into the mix. But anyway, I jump out on the balcony, got a picture of the 2 lower orbs. Now that's the second picture there,
right, in
that row. And immediately noticed an eerie silence as if time had stopped. It was just bizarre. And as intently as I was watching these 2 lower orbs, and I was totally focused on them, it felt like something was watching me. And again, I have to admit that going through my head at that moment, I thought, who are you? What are you? Do you know that I'm here? I'd love to meet you. And the next thing I remember, the left bottom orb started to implode and get smaller and smaller, just like the top one did. And that's the third picture there, which is amazing because I happened to catch it in motion. And this is like an Canon Instamatic, 35 millimeter camera.
Right.
Caught this as it was disappearing. And that was the only one that turned out at the time. But for me, it was confirmatory that something really extraordinary happened, that I had a documentation of it, but I didn't even know who to show it to. I have to tell you, Jimmy, I knew no one who was involved with the topic. So I wondered for 2 years what this advanced technology, and that's all I can say. I mean, it was definitely advanced technology with an intelligence behind it, was doing outside our bedroom window. And I thought maybe I'd never find out. Well,
let me ask you a question, Doctor, if I can, really
Sure.
quick. And do you prefer Doctor, or can we go with Lynn?
Sure, Dr. Lynn is fine.
Dr. Lynn, okay. Going back to the picture number 1, which shows the topography and the mountains in the distance, and I'm glad you have that. The reference with the skylights below is excellent. Now, looking at these orbs, how far away were the orbs from your house? Was it
close orbs? And they've been measured, by the way, by Dr. Bruce Maccabee, who really got onto the case, and we can talk about that a little bit because he came to an unbelievable conclusion
and
when
we
he
will.
analyzed that first and last picture. But he estimated, and again, depending on how close they were close. And as a very conservative estimate, it was about 100 yards.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, yeah, it was close.
Okay, because the distance, everybody should understand in this first picture, you're looking at, Phoenix proper here, outside of her house, overlooking. And if you understand how Phoenix is laid out, there's a mountain range where her house is sitting on. That's basically Camelback Mountain. And then all the way over, that's the other mountain range that's on the other side of Phoenix. So what you're looking at here, downtown Phoenix is to the right. To the left is Mesa, Arizona.
Right, and Tempe.
Yeah, and Tempe. And this is where McCarran Airport is, and it's Indian School Road, Lincoln. These are all the streets that go from east to west. And that's basically what you're looking over here is I guess you would call it East Phoenix, I would think, right? It's kind of because you have the freeway here and stuff, and the interchange, which all is off to the right. But that's what you're looking at is a large chunk of Phoenix out of this window. So that's the lay of the land. So when I'm asking how far are these orbs, they're not across the mountain range on the other side of Phoenix, and that's my
basic.
business.
Very close. They were very close. But what's really interesting, and this was until a year after the mass sighting, if you want to just stick with these pictures, when I finally did have them analyzed, and I went to extreme lengths to have my photographic evidence explained to me. At University of Arizona Optical Science Department, the Consciousness Study Department, ASU, Arizona State University, Geology, Anthropology, Mathematics, Anthropology Department, as well as the Brooks Institute of Photography and Navy optical physicist Dr. Bruce Maccabee. And what he did, actually, which I didn't even realize, I would have never realized, is he took these, and I'm getting very ahead of myself, but because this was a year after the mass sighting, when we had another sighting here in '98 that was pretty amazing and fabulous, and we had 4 people stationed at 4 different areas, north, south, east, and west, and we caught a 40-mile half-hour array of straight lines and mirror images, and the final thing was the triangle, which again was in the same location, and that one is on the second row. That's the third picture on the second row. But getting back to the 2 pictures there, the second and third, you'll see arrows in the background. Well, Dr. Maccabee called and said, how long was that sighting in '95? And I said, a couple minutes. He said, are you sure? I said, that's what it seemed. He said, ask your husband. And interestingly enough, while I thought the whole thing was wondrous and awesome and incredible, my husband wouldn't really talk about it at all. So I told him that. And he said, everybody reacts different to different things. And he said, well, he's got to confirm. And I sat him down. This is 3 years later, 4 years later almost. And he confirmed. He said 2 or 3 minutes, maybe 4. And I went back to Dr. Maccabee, and he said, that's impossible. I said, what do you mean? And by the way, this study is on the website, thephoenixlights.net, for anyone that wants to read the 21-page report, which Dr. Maccabee ultimately presented at the 1999 MUFON, Mutual UFO Network International Symposium in Washington, D.C. And I just shared it for the first time in the latest edition of my book. I still can't wrap my head around this, but he says that's impossible. He says, well, first of all, if you look in the background, and you're going to see in the other pictures it's consistent as well, the same exact phenomena are in the background, disappearing when the close orbs are disappearing, as I would also capture on video during the mass sighting. And that I would have never noticed. So the same phenomena was there in 95 that I would capture again, not only during the mass sighting, on March 13th, 1997, but 2 months before, and I'll get to that one. That was an amazing, amazing sighting. But anyway, just to finish this off, he says to me, that's impactful enough. He says, but look at the skyline. I said, okay. He says, there are many more lights on in the first picture, and this is the first and the last picture that I had, that are on in the last picture. He said, and we're talking groups of lights. He says, that doesn't happen in a couple of minutes. He said, I'd like you to do an experiment. He said, I'd like you to stand out on the balcony and approximately the same spot and try to take the city skyline one night every hour, the next night every half hour, and I actually did it every 15 minutes another night, and see when the groups of lights start going out. Well, I usually take a bath when we're home between 7 and 8. So let's be conservative and say the starting point is 8 o'clock. And when we did this experiment, the groups of lights started going out at 9 o'clock, and the last picture is indicative of 10:30, 11 o'clock. Now, again, I couldn't even wrap my head around what he was saying. He said, do you mind if I present this case at the MUFON International Symposium coming up in 1999? I said, hey, this is your baby. I would have never, ever realized any of this or noticed any of this. Just keep my name out of it. And I have to tell you, Jimmy, I really did not want to come forward. I stayed anonymous for 7 years. But anyway, he was kind enough to present the case without indicating who it was from as the first photographic evidence, and perhaps the only that we know of, authenticated photographic evidence of missing time. And he did a meticulous study of the first picture and the last picture. And so anyway, so add that to the mix. I just wanted to throw that in there of the first and the last picture from 95. But I always go back to that sighting, no matter what anybody says about flares and blimps and Chinese lanterns or whatever, because I saw this up close and personal. But then 2 years later, it wasn't until January of 97 that I noticed 3 orbs, giant orbs, to the west in a line. And I'm looking at them and I thought, wait a minute, now these are at a distance, okay? And they're in a line formation, equidistant from each other. They're amber. They're hovering for minutes. And each one from right to left started to implode very, very slowly. And from right to left, and they were out. Didn't think more about it. This was January 22nd. The next night, my husband was at a medical board meeting. He was on several hospital and state medical boards. And I noticed about 8 o'clock that the same 3 lights are now in front of South Mountain. Now, if you can take a look at that picture, there's red blinking lights. You there?
Yeah, I'm looking.
Red blinking lights, and I don't know if they're in that picture specifically, but there are red blinking lights on South Mountain warning planes coming into Sky Harbor.
Right.
And these 3 lights were below them, that definitely. And I thought to myself, okay, enough. I'm getting this on video, and I grabbed my video camera, got outside, got about 18 seconds worth, the battery goes dead.
Of course.
Oh, geez. I go inside, and by the way, it was charged. I go inside, I hook up the battery, I go outside, they're gone. About a half hour later, about 8:30, my husband comes up the drive, and I go outside, and I said, honey, remember when I saw, I told you I saw 3 orbs in a row far west last night? Well, about a half an hour ago, they were right in front of South Mountain, and as I'm pointing with my hand, they reappeared in the same spot. It was freaky, okay? And I thought, oh, my goodness, I've got to get a picture of this. So I ran upstairs, And again, I believe everything happens for a reason now, because video, they look very different in video. They're much smaller, they're white, they flicker, and they can't really be analyzed. I mean, you can certainly tell the difference between them and flares, but because of the formations themselves are very compelling. But 35 millimeter can actually be analyzed. And I grab my 35 millimeter, I get outside on the balcony, and I'm ready to shoot the 3. As I'm ready to shoot the 3, suddenly 6 pop up on top of the 3, massive span, over a mile wide. It was scary, I have to tell you. I mean, not having an explanation for the 95 sighting, the first thought was, oh my goodness, is this a mothership or a fleet?
Right.
And you can see in that picture it's kind of wavy because I was shaking.
Right.
I was shaking. And I tried to hold as still as I could, and I started clicking away. And unbeknownst to me, I mean, as the oars were disappearing underneath, this thing was turning into a V shape, okay? And I ran inside, and I quickly called the Arizona Republic newspaper, and I said, you got to get somebody out there quick. There are some strange lights in front of South Mountain. Can you tell me what they are? And by the time I finished the sentence, they were gone. Well, I have to admit, Jimmy, I did not sleep well that night, and I got up in the morning, and I figured, hey, there must be a logical explanation for this. I'll just hunt it out. Somebody's going to know what they were. It was massive, a massive span of these equidistant lights. And I first called the Arizona Republic again, and I said, did anybody call last night to report strange lights in front of South Mountain? The lady gets off. She gets right back on. She said, no, nobody called. Well, I know I called. Okay, so I said, well, look, my husband and I did see something strange. I'm sure there's a logical explanation. I just like to find out what that is. And she said, well, sometimes Luke Air Force Base, which is not too far from here in the West, sometimes sends out experimental maneuvers, and they don't tell the public about them. And that sounded reasonable, so I called Luke. And as soon as the operator got on the phone, I tried to be professional. My husband and I are both physicians. We live mountainside in Paradise Valley, and we saw some strange lights in front of South Mountain last night. Do you know what they might have been? And from the get-go, she was adamant. They didn't come into Luke Air Force Base, and they didn't come out from here, so we had nothing to do with them. And I said, okay.
Did it sound like she had? Did it sound like she had had a few phone calls that day about this?
I presume that she did. I don't know, but she really was not. She was not friendly. Okay, and she didn't want to hear about it. And I said, well, I'd like to sleep tonight, and I know something happened. I actually got pictures of it. Could you tell me who I can call? And she says, well, you said it was near the airport, so maybe somebody saw something there. So now it was a mission. Okay, so now I really had to get to the bottom of it, and I called the FAA at the airport, at the Phoenix International Airport, and they were very nice, and they said, well, maybe some of the air traffic controllers saw something last night. I said, great, would you mind asking them? She gets off the phone. Left me hanging for like 5 minutes. Finally gets on. She says, well, actually, there was a group here last night of air traffic controllers that saw some strange lights. I said, oh, could I please talk to one of them or some of them? And finally, this guy gets on the phone, and he's a real low-key guy, Jimmy. I mean, just mellow guy. And he gets on the phone. He was more excited than me. He said, did you see the 6 lights that were 6 equidistant from each other hovering in a formation last night at 8:30? He said, actually, there were 3 at 8 o'clock. I said, I saw them too. He said, I can't believe you saw them at a distance. He said, and they popped on. Now, keep in mind, and he was very forthcoming. They all were very forthcoming. I talked to a few of them. That it appeared over Class B restricted airspace at 1,000 feet altitude. Now, we're talking a 30-mile radius around the center of the airport, that anyone that goes into that radius, especially 1,000 feet, has to call the tower, and no one did. So, of course, they were alarmed. So they immediately looked on radar, did not show up on radar. So they took their binoculars to look, and in the meantime, they're trying to figure out what the heck it could be, and they're ruling out every conventional thing you can think of. And in their own description, what they said were there were 6 points of light, totally equidistant from each other, massive span over a mile wide, that seemed to be attached to something, or had a force field in between each light, each point of light. And one of them was a meteorologist and said it actually turned against the wind as a unit, and then elevated slowly and went slowly behind South Mountain in synchrony. So I said, so what was it? And there was silence. And then one of them said, beats me. I said, you're air traffic controllers. You're supposed to know what's in our airspace, and you don't know what they were.
Right.
Professional sky watchers.
Right.
And they ruled out everything. I mean, from flares to balloons to Chinese lanterns, whatever. I mean, any conventional aircraft, whatever. Even skydivers with lights. I mean, all of the above. And so we kept in contact. I continued photographing these things up into and including March 13th. For me, it was another night. Okay.
Well, let me stop you before we get to the evening of March 13th. What up to this point, what starts going through your mind? I mean, first, I mean, do you have the I must be going crazy thoughts, or are you thinking possibly extraterrestrial? What is going through the good doctor's mind, and your husband's too, for that matter?
Well, that is a very interesting question, because being a physician, you must be open to things. You must be open-minded. And by the way, that's the first step in all of this, to be open-minded. I have always been a healthy skeptic, but I got to see it to believe it. But I've also been open to things. If you close yourself off, you close yourself off to so much out there. But to answer your question, when we were seeing these lights, I mean, in the book, I go through some of the process actually, and it's helped other people transform. And because as a physician, that was one of the reasons I came forward as well, not only to share as an educator and a scientist the data, which speaks for itself, but as a physician, you realize after having an experience like this that there are millions of people out there who have had experience, even though most things can be explained. Only a small percentage of anomalies cannot. But when someone has an extraordinary experience like this, it's real to them. And if you don't share it, it festers. It's not healthy. And so many people have been afraid to share because there's so much ridicule and criticism. I mean, myself included. I mean, I stayed anonymous for 7 years. We can get into that whole thing, but and did a lot of soul searching before I came forward. 750-page journal later, because I'll get to that once the mass sighting happened. I kept an intricate journal. But going back to before the mass sighting, I have some of the conversations with my husband and I in the book, which are kind of comical because he would make jokes out of it, and I was taking it really seriously. I have to tell you, for whatever reason, it just fascinated me, and I had to get out there and take pictures of it. And then ultimately, and this is another coincidence, a couple weeks before the mass sighting. And this is how close I was to anybody that knew this topic. I started showing the video, and again, the video doesn't do it justice, but the formations are really compelling if you actually look at it. And I started showing them to my friends, and a friend of a friend had a neighbor who had a friend who knew the past president of MUFON, Mutual UFO Network. So I called him up, and I told him that I had been seeing these lights, and he hadn't heard about it, but I have to tell you, there were other people not only that were seeing them, but also photographing them for days before. And there was a big sighting the day before our mass sighting on March 13th up at the Navajo Range. And that's a whole other thing. And they thought that would be like the big news. And then, certainly our mass sighting eclipsed that. So people that just focus on the March 13th don't know the story, okay? Because there were many things going on for weeks before. But at any rate, I make an appointment with a field. He hooks me up with a field investigator for the following week. On Wednesday, he calls on Tuesday to say that the then state director, Tom Taylor, couldn't be there because his mom had passed on Saturday. Could we postpone? And the funeral was that Wednesday. So the only window of opportunity I had for like 2-3 weeks at the time was Friday morning at 10 o'clock. He said, fine. Well, Thursday was another night for me. I mean, here I see one lone light about 8:20, and in retrospect, and this was far west at a distance, and in retrospect, that was when the first official call came in from a retired police officer in Paulden, Arizona, although after we really got into the investigation, there were people seeing daylight sightings from 3 o'clock in the afternoon on March 13th. And they were also seeing the same phenomena in New Mexico at 5:30 and in California at 7 o'clock. But the first official call came in that the media picked up on at 8:20. So that would compute. That's when I saw that one light far northwest. Mm-hmm. about not quite an hour later, a little after 9 o'clock, I see one lone light far south. And it was kind of weird because usually they would be in the same area when I would see them, but this was like a total different place in the sky. And that's actually when thousands of people were seeing these phenomena down in Tucson. And we're watching the 9 o'clock news, and suddenly they have the ad for the 10 o'clock news coming up about a quarter of or so. And I see the same exact 6 lights pop up in a line that I saw 2 months before. And if you look at those pictures, by the way, you'll see that I caught it. I mean, they're miraculous, actually. In January of 97, I caught this thing head on and then turning into a V when it was turning against the wind, as the air traffic controller said. But anyway, those pictures didn't turn out at the time. I was told they were blank. So I was really excited that I could get out there and at least get video of this. By the time I got out there and focused the camera, there were 3 lights that looked like the end points of a massive mile-wide triangular V, and I was excited that I had something on video to show the MUFON investigator the next morning, and I walk in to his home, and the first thing he says to me is, "Did you see the mass sighting last night?" And I said, "Well, I saw something similar to 2 months ago." He said, "In the same spot, by the way." And I called the air traffic controllers, and they confirmed it was the same exact phenomena in the same exact location over Class B restricted airspace during the mass sighting when I was photographing them. And he says, no, you don't understand. Hundreds, if not thousands of people saw these orbs in V formation and craft, and the NBC was going to be there to interview him in a half an hour. I said, whoa, I'm out of here. I said, I worked for NBC in the early 80s doing health reporting here. They might know who I am, and I don't want to get involved with this at all.
Right.
It's not about me, and it's never been about me. Again, it's about the data. And if I can be a voice that people actually look at the data, then I've done my job. But at any rate, at that point, I said, why don't you just take a copy of the video? I'd like people to see what we saw, and then they can decide for themselves and share it with the media, and goodbye.
So what happened? Did you go to bed early? Is that how you missed it?
Miss what?
The mass wave.
No, I actually have one of the handful of video from that night. There's only a handful of videos.
Right. There's only 2 or 3. I thought you just said.
Actually, there's 4. Actually, there's 4. There's 5.
Well, isn't
no. It was. I saw the 820.
Right.
And I didn't see a craft like other people did, and I'll get to that in a second. And I saw one shortly after 9 o'clock when they were seeing these phenomena in Tucson. And then in the 9 o'clock hour, the same thing popped up that had popped up 2 months before, and I got that on video, and that's exactly what people describe statewide. I mean, we're talking, the endpoints of a giant V or triangle. And if you look at the second picture in that series of 6, it's really, really important, 2 months before the mass sighting.
Right.
That's exactly what most people describe. 5 lights in a row or a V formation with 2 trailing.
Right.
And you can, if you listen to radio programs and TV programs, and the people say that over and over again. And I caught that 2 months before the mass sighting. Okay,
right.
So that's really important. People don't realize that this thing was around. But at any rate, so I leave. Okay, and by 4:30 that next day, the first news that came on with anything about the Phoenix lights, okay, had my video on it. They were showing my video because he had given my video to all the news people. And by 9 o'clock, I mean, it was really exciting, I have to say, Jimmy. I mean, after seeing these things for a couple of years and not knowing what we're dealing with, and then learn that thousands of people saw what we had been seeing, it was pretty exciting. And by the 9 o'clock news, a couple other videos came out. One of them is spectacular. It is an arrowhead, and was taken just about the same time I took mine. And it's an arrowhead of 5 lights, and all you have to do is just look at the footage. Those lights are either attached to something. Again, people would say that over and over again. It seemed to be attached to something, or had a force field in between. Now, and that was before 10 o'clock. And this is where things kind of get, mis and disinformation from the media. There were 2 videos that were taken after 10 o'clock of a boomerang Okay, and that's become very controversial for being flares, but we can get to that in a second because one of them I have never used in anything because it does look a little haphazard.
Mm-hmm.
So they may have sent off flares. But the other one is so rock solid. I mean, flares cannot do that, but that's a whole other story. But at any rate, so, they're like all day long. They were, into the night, they were talking about this, and for weeks later, and it wasn't until the week after the mass sighting, again, I knew nothing about this topic, that they're interviewing a fella and showing my video, and he starts showing other videos and pictures from his database. He was right here in Phoenix, in Tempe, in Village Labs, right near ASU, Arizona State University. An authority, not only a color, computer authority, because it's a big computer lab, and Hormel, you mentioned Hormel, he was actually partners with him at the time.
We're referring to
Jim Delatoso,
right?
But he was showing from all over the world, from UK and Belgium and the Hudson Valley sightings in the 80s and the 90s. I mean, I had no idea, and I'm thinking, my goodness, this is happening worldwide? What's going on here?
Mm-hmm.
And from that day onward, I started keeping an intricate journal of everything, of the media. I called the military. Those conversations are quite comical. I have them in the book as well. They were just as curious as everyone else. And, of course, witness testimony and, again, going and really trying to find a logical explanation for this. And before I knew it, just looking at the history, and I'm sure you know the history of these phenomena, they've been around since human documentation began. I had no idea.
Absolutely.
There are etched out drawings in primitive caves where the animals that are in these drawings are long extinct, and they have UFOs in the sky. I mean, how did they know that? And certainly Sumerian writings and India writings, and even the Bible, Ezekiel's wheel. We can go on and on to 15th and 16th centuries with frescoes and pictures of people on the ground. We show a few of those in the documentary, looking up at not only UFOs, but there are beings in the UFOs. And then, World War II, we have Foo Fighters. In fact, every year I host, just to keep it alive, the Phoenix Lights Alive. We celebrate the anniversary around the 13th of March at the Harkins Scottsdale Theater here. We show the latest edition of the documentary, and we have speakers afterwards. And this last year and this year, we had Navajo Rangers. I mean, there are Rangers, which are, that's amazing that they actually are law enforcement that are taking this seriously. We had such an amazing, positive transformation here in the media as well, and we had a 92-year young Foo Fighter pilot in World War II from France. He's 92 years young, and he actually saw the same phenomena during World War II and reported it. His story is in the bonus features of our documentary DVD. It is fascinating what happened to him when he tried to report it, because as we know, pilots are certainly threatened with their careers if they come forward, and many pilots have seen things. But at any rate, getting back to the mass sighting, for anybody that doesn't know about the mass sighting, or has heard that it was one or two events and so forth, and the misinformation out there really got to me. I have to tell you, once I had the 750-page journal, and then went back to work to help put our younger son through medical school at the Arizona Heart Institute as their chief clinical consultant. While I was there doing a lot of soul searching and deciding whether I should come forward or not, I started editing down the book to the best, most credible information that I found. But in the meantime, what is really amazing with the mass sighting is it wasn't one or two events. It was many events. As I mentioned earlier, starting at 3 p.m. in the afternoon during the day, people saw daylight sightings of these phenomena all the way until 5:30 the next morning. There was a Boeing crew that contacted me that actually saw one of these mile-wide craft hovering over their tarmac. Now, let me back up a little bit.
Well, I'm actually going to ask you about that, and we need to back up actually a little bit more, because there's two or three things that crisscross here, and we need you to clarify this. And this is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We are talking to Dr. Lynne Kitei about the Phoenix Lights. And now, Doctor, let's just back up. There's by the way, my producers did get to me. It was Thursday, March 13th. I had told everybody in the intro to the show tonight, Doctor, about I was in Phoenix that week, and I had gotten home on Friday. And when I walked in from the airport, I remember putting down my bags and turning on the TV, and boom, right there, national news here in Los Angeles is the Phoenix Lights. And it's the famous shot of whatever you want to call it, but the large mass sighting. And I'm thinking to myself, I just got back from Phoenix, and I don't remember seeing this or hearing about it in Phoenix the night before. What I did that Friday, driving around in cars and getting onto a plane, I probably didn't see the news and so forth. But I was indeed in Phoenix that night. I just missed it. And I don't know, I know what I was doing that night, so I have an excuse for not seeing it. But nonetheless, I missed one of the greatest opportunities of a lifetime. I was there. Now, this is what I want to talk about, though. The following week after the Phoenix Lights incident, the rumor was going around here, and I don't know if it was on the news, but certainly a few friends were talking about this. And this was the story that was immediately preceding the event, or immediately following the event, which was that the flares were done at Luke Air Force Base as a total a camouflage of the real event. And that was the story, that there was something that had flown to Tucson and that they wanted to cover it up at Luke Air Force Base with flares. Now, that was the story going around here. At that time in Phoenix, was there the same type of rumor and disinformation and we're not talking about Governor Symington. We'll get to that issue in a second. Right. But is that what was going on in Phoenix? Was there some disinfo going around? You knew what you have been seeing and photographing, right? So what was going on? What was the word on the street?
Actually, it was amazing because, and I am going to back up and just state this because so people realize what we're talking about here. We're not just talking about orbs in V-shapes, mile-wide V-shaped formations that traverse the entire state and beyond. I mean, there was also at 11:30, there was a commercial airline crew that saw the same thing that covered Las Vegas, and were actually tried to report it, and a strange voice got on, a very authoritative voice, and kind of freaked them out a little bit, and they poo-pooed it that they didn't really see anything. And there was another pilot that called in that was all anxious about it because it was right over him. And as they approached California, suddenly at 30,000 feet, and this is 140 passengers saw this as well, right outside their window, I mean, they said it was less than a mile, they see like a burst of light, like a flare. And within seconds, a military aircraft whizzed by them on the other side, in the other direction, with afterburners on, and the pilot said she jumped out of her seat. I mean, it was that close. They felt that they were trying to quiet them and freak them out a little bit, which they did. And also at 3 a.m., the following morning, just so you know the details surrounding the mass sighting, there was a call to the National UFO Reporting Center, Peter Davenport, very detailed. We have the recording, actually, and some of the recording in the documentary, and I talk about it in the book as well, that shared that he was a crewman from Luke Air Force Base, very detailed, very professional, and that at 8:30 that night, there were aircraft, military jets that were sent out to intercept, get gun camera film, and I've heard that they did get gun camera film. I haven't seen it, but I heard that they did. But as they got closer, and this is right over Central Phoenix, this is 7th Avenue and Indian School,
right?
The lights started to dim, and then the whole thing blinked out. And this is a mile-wide craft.
Right,
okay?
right.
And the crewman said that it freaked out one of the pilots. He actually helped carry out that pilot from his own aircraft. Now, just to get back, let me back up and I'll answer your question for you in a sec. But again, it wasn't just orbs. If you go on the GAP page, GAP, the Geospatial Animation Project on the Phoenix Lights Network website, thephoenixlights.net, GAP, there were actually 9 or 10 different craft that people saw. Now, this is a mile wide, totally silent. I mean, I want to make that clear. It didn't even displace the air, okay? And this was right over people's heads. Some people said they could have thrown a rock at it.
Right.
It was so close.
Right.
And we have a pilot in the documentary that had one of these craft, and also an artist, that had one of these craft right over their head. And they described these giant wells, these giant canisters, like light canisters in the ceiling, of swimming light right above them. I mean, the descriptions were just unbelievable. Plus, some people saw these orbs detach from the main object, go out into the environment, and then redock with it later. And, of course, the thought has come, maybe that's what happened in 95, because the same phenomena was in the distance when we were looking at these close orbs. But nonetheless, some people saw that. Other people, just as the military, saw these craft just take off in blink speed or disappear. And someone even saw it there's one craft, okay, that split in two and then just shot up in the air. I mean, amazing, amazing technology. So it wasn't just 1 or 2 events. It was many, many events, and there were many craft. Now, whether it was one craft that could morph into looking differently, or the perspective from where the person was standing, or a parade of different craft. Now, that's what the conclusion, after 12 years of studying thousands of reports from the National UFO Reporting Center in Seattle, Washington, Councilwoman Vice Mayor Frances Barwood, who was the only elected official who innocently, she didn't see it, but enough of her constituents were asking her, why isn't there an investigation? And this was in May that she asked why we wouldn't look into it, and she got plastered by the media, by the way. And also,
I felt so bad for her, because she was definitely concerned, and you could see it on her face too. Yeah, you could see it. And she was shocked at the feedback she was getting. She's an official, and for her,
just asked innocently.
Yes,
that maybe we should look into this, because so many people had to go right over their head.
Right,
a public safety issue, if nothing else. Absolutely, and Village Labs and also Arizona MUFON all contributed thousands and thousands of reports, and they're illustrated beautifully by Larry Lowe on the Gap page. I welcome people to take a look at it, and they felt that ultimately that there was a parade throughout the state and beyond, New Mexico and California and Nevada as well, of multiple craft. So, we may never know, but, they're so different that, one wonders if there wasn't that going on. Well, going back to what you said, there is an outside chance that they did send off some flares, but I have to tell you, in 17 years, not one person that I know of, I'm pretty intimately involved in the investigation, has shared that they saw flares that night, okay? It was quite the contrary. Flares drift and drop and have huge smoke trails and illuminate the area around it. Not one person has reported that saw the true unknown. So I don't know if they did send off flares. They may have, but that's another issue, because what happened was that there was no investigation. No explanation at all for months. And then suddenly, and again, this is a really important part of the puzzle, June 18th, 1997, this is months later, suddenly, and by the way, I mean, it wasn't really talked about outside of Arizona. I mean, you might have heard about it in California a little bit, but it was the first time that international media heard about the Phoenix Lights, and we were deluged overnight. It went viral, and there was no social media at the time, just from that front page, article, and it was a beautiful, gigantic article in USA Today, and by the late morning, that next morning, it's very interesting how the story unfolds. We get the news that the then former Governor Symington, was calling a press conference that afternoon, unscheduled, to reveal the culprit, quote unquote.
Now, did you see the press conference live as it happened?
I wasn't there live, but I saw it on TV.
That's what I mean.
You saw it. Okay. It was disheartening for anybody that saw the real deal.
Right.
He comes marching out, and I have to tell you, this year, if you look at those pictures, there's a guard standing behind them, and he marches out, one of his aides with an giant alien head costume and made a mockery of this. And he came up to me this year at the anniversary celebration at Hark and Shea, and he said he felt so bad when that was happening. He was watching this happen right in front of him. But at any rate, it was very disheartening, especially for parents that were with children. I mean, what do you say to your kids? The governor is making a joke out of this, and they saw it. I mean, something that's bigger than a giant mall went over their heads, if you know what I mean.
Well, what was worse, this is hindsight, and, hindsight is, well, we know what hindsight is. But for Fife Symington III, for Fife, he, as it turns out, he was a witness himself. That's what pains me, and it pains him to this day. But he was a witness himself, and he was forced into. Somebody made him make the mockery that he did of the press conference, and he knew he was lying to his own constituents, to the press, to the media. When he stepped up to the microphone, I can't imagine what was going through the back of his mind at that very moment.
I can't either, but anyway, it happened, and what was really interesting is that it put a lid on everything very quickly, okay? And that next month, I again called the military and asked them what was going on, because, once you see something up close and personal, you can't let go. And their conversations were amazing because they were just as curious. I mean, I had one lieutenant say to me, hey, whoever did this, knows who they are, and God, they're the only ones that know. I mean, they didn't know either. And then suddenly I get a call. This is really interesting. I get a call a month later, July 24th. And I remember the date exactly because it was my sister-in-law's birthday back east, and I called her right after this call, and she had already heard this news. We hadn't even heard it yet here. But I get a call from one of the heads of PR at the Air National Guard, and she says, Dr. Lynn, do you believe, we think we know what those lights were back in March? And I said, you do? Great. I mean, I was looking for any logical explanation. She says, do you believe in all these months, and we're talking July 24th, from March 13th, that nobody ever looked at the log for visiting Air National Guard, and the Maryland Air National Guard came in town to send off flares in Operation Snowbird, and I later learned that in military terms that means diversionary tactical maneuvers, and it's been a diversion ever since, I have to tell you.
Right.
But she said that must be what some people saw. Those were her exact words. And I said, well, wait a minute, when were the Maryland National Guard in town? She said March 1st to the 15th. I said, were they in town in January? She said, no. I said, are you sure? She said, oh, absolutely not. I said, well, I have 35 millimeter photographic evidence of the same exact phenomena in the same exact location, confirmed the next morning in both cases, in January and the morning after the mass sighting by air traffic controllers at Sky Harbor International Airport, as hovering over Class B restricted airspace, 1,000 feet altitude. And she says, you never told me that. And then the next thing I said, and you're trying to say, and I had educated myself, I try to educate myself to anything logical as well, including flares. I said, and you're trying to say flares that cannot keep a formation, that drift and drop with the wind haphazardly in seconds, and have huge smoke trails that are illuminated by the flare itself and illuminate the area, which not one person reported traverse the entire state in a rock-solid, equidistant, mile-wide V formation for hours.
Right,
and she
exactly.
said, I have a call coming in. I'll get back to you. Well, I'm still waiting. But I have to tell you, Jimmy, after that, first of all, you realize that the only hard evidence, I mean, they could blow off people's testimony and say they didn't know what they were looking at and it was a mirage and, whatever. But they couldn't blow off the videos. Okay, and by the way, my video is the only one that's been authenticated as a true unknown to this day. But they're all very impressive, and they had to come up with something.
Well, what happened to the one video? I can't remember the guy's name that shot it. It'll come to me in a second. The one video. Well, it was the one of the V formation. It was kind of staticky.
It was earlier.
Yeah.
It was earlier.
And
yes, that mysteriously disappeared through the years, I have to tell you.
That video is the one that, well, all of it is good, but that video was the aha video. That was the one where
no,
it's just like, it was because it showed the V shape perfectly. It was shot overhead. You could see the stars moving by as he's tracking the V shape. So it's in motion. You could tell that the lights were attached to each other in that. If it would have been a formation of aircraft or something else, something would deviate, something would move, maybe flashing lights, or there's something that would
they
have.
all have navigation lights. That's
right.
Did not have.
Right. That one video is the one that, and so it never surfaced again. It's just gone.
Well, at the very beginning it did, and then suddenly it wasn't around anymore. I mean, there were, so
I just got
a
text. Richard Curtis is the guy that shot.
Richard Curtis was another video, yes.
Okay.
Yes, he had a video, and that's a whole story in itself, that supposedly he had an amazing video that Francis Barwood wanted to get, and suddenly there were a couple of men in suits at his door, and I don't know, whatever. I didn't see it myself, but supposedly they said they were from her office and asked him if he had taken a copy, and he hadn't, which is beyond me to give it to somebody before you take a copy, but he gave it to them and it was never seen again. So that was the story there, and I don't know, I never saw it, so I couldn't tell you if it was for real or not. But as far as Richard Curtis' story goes,
did anybody see Richard's video?
Not that I know of. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think so. I don't know. I don't know. But at any rate, after they came out with the flare story, it was like, okay, if it's flares, and again, I'm open. Hey, if it was military, then of course it's concerning that they would go right over people's heads and then deny it, okay? But, okay, do it again. Now, I knew I had photographic evidence, and this is where the evidence really is important component of this, because I have the same phenomena photographed 2 months before the mass sighting. Again, it's in the negatives. It cannot be denied, okay? 2 months before the mass sighting and 2 years before the mass sighting, okay? So whoever did this did it multiple times. If the military did it, fine, do it again. Well, it was asked numerous times to do it again. And by the way, just going back to the 24th of July, I called my sister-in-law right afterwards to wish her a happy birthday, and the first thing she said to me, they just said on the news that the lights you saw in Phoenix were flares. We didn't even hear it here yet until the next day. It was already back east in Delaware, which was very interesting. But at any rate, that traveled quickly. And by the way, when I tried to get in touch with the people, and I go in detail in my book about this, the spokesman from Maryland Air National Guard, boy, did they give me the runaround. He would not get on the phone, and then I found out later that he wasn't even here. So why was he the spokesman? And I have not spoken to one person that from the Maryland Air National Guard, and I tried to find someone that was here, because I wanted to find out how many they sent off, where they sent it off, what direction, what altitude. Nada. But at any rate,
well, let's take a quick break for everybody.
Sure.
We'll take a quick 2-minute break. This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We're talking to Dr. Lynne Kitei about the Phoenix Lights. We'll take a couple-minute break. We'll be back right after this. Stay with us, everybody.
Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? My name's Brian Taylor, Ninja Badass Extraordinaire, and this is JimmyChurchRadio.com. JJCR, in your face.
JimmyChurchRadio.com on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. We are talking to Dr. Lynne Kitei about the Phoenix Lights. This is Fade to Black. It is the Wednesday edition. Shoot me an email to jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. You can follow us on Twitter @jchurchradio. And don't forget to hashtag DMRadioNet. In a few minutes, Doctor, if you don't mind, you want to take some phone calls?
Absolutely, but I just wanted to finish this thought. Because
No.
What
Finish.
was really neat, and I'd love to take some phone calls, absolutely. What was really interesting is that right before the third anniversary of the Phoenix Lights event, our former Vice Mayor, Councilwoman Frances Barwood, decided to run for Secretary of State. And you can only imagine the jokes that were made in the paper about that on a platform to get answers for the Phoenix Lights, by the way. And she was really pushing for a reenactment. And suddenly we get, the announcement that 3 Air National Guards, and again, this is such an important part of the story, and very few people know about this unless you read my book or hear me on a wonderful program like this. 3 Air National Guards, California, Michigan, and New York, I believe, came to show everyone the Phoenix Lights. They were doing a deployment of flares to show the Phoenix Lights. Now, whether they thought we forgot or they could just confuse the issue even more or whatever, it was a joke. I have to say, if anything put the nail in the coffin for flares, it was when they tried to reenact it. And if you go to the news page on the Phoenix Lights Network website, and you go down, I think it's the second level there, to the AZ family. That's a CNN affiliate, Channel 3. They do a wonderful report on just that, on their flare drop. And it was just such a dire failure for them. I mean, they tried to make a triangle. It fell apart immediately. It had huge smoke trails. I mean, just like flares do. And it dissipated almost immediately within seconds. It absolutely, and let me tell you, the media and the witnesses were out en masse to watch this. It really confirmed for the witnesses of the true unknowns that what we saw was definitely not flares. And to this day, the Phoenix Lights have never been reenacted, never been explained. The craft itself have never been addressed, and these phenomena continue to occur worldwide.
One of the things, and the calls have already started coming in, by the way. One of the things for me is this. When I grew up on military bases, my father was in the Army, and I've seen exercises. I've forgotten more than I've remembered. But the one thing as a kid, when you look up at flares, first off, they're beautiful. That's the first thing. They're great. But their intention is to light up everything. And exactly. you see the smoke. You see, sometimes you can see the parachute, that is holding it up in the sky.
Exactly.
And it's orange, and it's got a very specific, very beautiful look to it. But the intention is to light up everything. And I don't know if it was flares or not. I don't. I wasn't there. I didn't see it. But it doesn't look to me to be flares in the videos. I've seen the reenactment stuff that they did, and those are the orange flares that you normally see, if you know what I'm trying to describe.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I mean, besides the fact that when you saw them, like I said, the video doesn't do it justice. In the video, they're much smaller, they're white, they flicker. But if you really study the videos, you'll see, how perfectly aligned these phenomena are. I mean, they're either have a force field in between holding them in rock solid formation, or they're attached to something. And I'm telling you, people saw gunmetal underneath these crafts as well. As some people saw windows and beings at the windows. I mean, it is extraordinary when you hear the descriptions from the witnesses themselves. But at any rate, the flare thing is just so ridiculous at this point. Anybody that says, "Oh, the Phoenix Lights were flares," you just know right off that they haven't looked at the data. They obviously haven't read my book, but they also haven't looked at the data because all you have to do is look at the data to see that there's no way that they were flares. And it wasn't just lights. It also was craft, and that's really important to really get out there. That there were multiple crafts. There were mile-wide craft. There were actually, it was such an amazing technology that we haven't seen any of this. They could disappear. They could fade. They could, in blink speed, could just take off. That had orbs that could come. They could come off from it and go out into the environment and then redock with it. I mean, all this kind of stuff. That, where is it? It's 17 years later.
Let's grab this first call. Who's calling? You're live with Dr. Lynne Kitei.
Well, I think you know who I am. This is Dino.
Oh, hi, Dino. How are you, sir? What have you got?
I hope I'm... Go ahead.
No, I was to say, what have you got for the good doctor tonight?
Well, first off, hello, doctor. Before that, I have to always express, my gratitude for what you do, Jimmy, and the hours you put in, and this is important stuff. So thank you for that. And now I'll go to doctor. Thank you for coming forward when you're a medical professional to put yourself on the line like this. And now I'd like to hopefully add to the discussion in some way. I have a couple of points. If I had seen something like this, which I have not, but I've had an open mind for years doing the research on these, I would go to no ends to try to find out what it was and who was covering it up. And I appreciate that you've done this, and I'm wondering if you have run into any formal or underhanded type of opposition about what you've been doing.
That's a really
in other
good
words,
question.
if someone tried to jeopardize or hang you up or try to stop you.
That's a really good question. I appreciate you asking it, actually, because, again, I did not want to come forward. And once I condensed the 750-page journal to 250 pages, and it was just of the best and most credible, most compelling statements from presidents and CIA and military and pilots and astronauts. Astronaut Edgar Mitchell is in our documentary. He's fabulous, and really did my homework. I mean, I really tried to find a logical explanation, and I have yet to find one. What do you do with that? As an educator for 40 years, and as a scientist, knowing that I have data that cannot be explained or denied, and as a physician, knowing there are people out there that don't want to, that are afraid to talk about it, there's so much ridicule and criticism and discrediting. I mean, that is a scary proposition, very scary to come forward, especially I was chief clinical consultant at the Arizona Heart Institute when I came forward in 2004. But you know what?
Well,
I could not stick it in a drawer, and I have been so lucky. I mean, I have to say, I've been very blessed in that when people actually read it, they really appreciate it, the work that's gone into it. So, I'm trying to help. I'm not trying to bash the government or the military or anyone. I'm just trying to get the information out there, let people decide for themselves. This is really a grassroots effort. Once I came out...
Well, Doctor, I have to agree with you on that. I mean, the thing is, whether it's Edgar Mitchell, who I respect, or Gordon Cooper, another astronaut I respect, or Travis Walton or Whitley Strieber, when you meet these people in person, you can't help but realize that they're sticking themselves out. However, I want to support you because almost like, let's say, gay marriage now, it's becoming more and more acceptable as people who were resistant to it before are saying, hey, what's so bad about it? It's not my cup of tea, maybe, but let's be open about it and not ridicule the people like yourselves and like Jimmy and like these others I've mentioned who are stepping forward, who are not Looney Tunes, who are not somebody who is looking for self-aggrandizement, and they're coming forward. And that said, the governor, who knows what pressure he was under, but I was so angry to learn years later after the charade and mockery he made with his aide coming out with the stupid costume and a helmet on, that he now has come forward. He should be going to the ends of the earth. He's not running for political office now and trying to find out what happened and telling everybody in the main media about it.
Hey, Dino, thank you for the call. I'm gonna grab another one really quick.
Well, can I say two things with that? Because you
made absolutely.
Really great points. Number one, when, right after the 10th anniversary, the governor did come forward and bravely and say that he saw it, and as a military pilot, that it was otherworldly, which was a big step forward. I have to say, and that was the other reason that I wanted to come forward, is that the more credible people that come forward and actually share their stories and share the data, and thank goodness I have 35 millimeter or I wouldn't be talking to you right now,
right.
The more we can start raising awareness. And actually J. Allen Hynek said it so poignantly. Dr. J. Allen Hynek was the head of the astronomy department at Northwestern and was plucked out to head the Project Blue Book, which was the only public study of UFOs, and of course he came up with the swamp gas and also close encounters. But he did also come forward shortly before he passed in '85 to say that he was told not to panic the public and to cover up anything that really push everything under the carpet that was anomalous, and just focus on the easy things, or put the people out there that did look ridiculous. But he made a very good statement. He said, in science, it happens in 3 stages. The first stage is complete disbelief. The second stage is, well, it might be so. And the third and final stage is, I knew it all the time. And I think we are getting closer and closer with social media, and really that's in the mix. Now with social media, and people have cell phones now, people with cameras, people ask me all the time, why wasn't there more pictures? Well, number one, we had clunky telephones. Remember those clunky cell phones, for those that even had them in 95 and 97? And they didn't have cameras in them. And who carries a camera when you're out and about? And it was such a beautiful night, and people were playing golf and in their baseball teams and all kinds of stuff. But those that did have cameras and did try to take pictures, it turned out blank, because the objects were so massive and blocked out the stars that they didn't turn out. So that's why there wasn't, more pictures. But, as we look at the data and as we really look at the story unfolding, more and more because of social media. And now, I have to tell you this too, when I came forward in 2004, the official and accepted, except for the witnesses and investigators, of course, explanation of the Phoenix Lights was that they were merely military illumination flares. Well, now, and, we're talking to, 17 years later, if you go on YouTube, it'll blow you away. You put in Phoenix Lights, and people around the world, and it's not just me, it's people like Francis Barwood and people like former Governor Symington, who finally came forward, that have raised awareness around the world of the Phoenix Lights and of our mass sighting, which has become, by the way, not only the most documented, the most witnessed, and the most important mass sighting in modern history, but it has become historic in not only the annals of ufology, but certainly in the annals of human history. And now when people see similar phenomena, whether it's orbs or these triangle or V-shaped craft, you'll hear them on the video while they're shooting and say, oh, wow, there's the Phoenix Lights. So that's pretty cool.
We have Lou on the line. Lou, how you doing tonight?
Fine, thank you. How are you? Well, I hope you're well.
Yeah.
Sorry. Good. Doctor, I'm fully a supporter, and I want to refer not to the orbs. That was interesting. That was some new information there for me. But what I'd like to know is about the triangle or the V-shaped or boomerang craft. I've heard some people who are publicly prominent in the UFO field express opinions that they think that's American or human technology. I don't think so, but I'm curious how you react to something like that.
Well, again, I always go back to the 95 sighting that I saw up close and personal. If we had this kind of technology, shame on them that they did it right over people's heads and then denied it. Okay, that's first of all. Secondly, I don't doubt for a second that we have some advanced technology out there that we're not being told. Okay, we know that's happening too. So that's in the mix. And, the bottom line is that when you go back in history, and that's also very impressive, these phenomena have been around for centuries, and certainly the native indigenous cultures have known about them, have accepted them, have embraced them, and that's a whole other story that I get into in the book. It isn't just March 13th. That's the main thing. If people that are listening today can go away with the thought that there is much more to the story than March 13th, 1997, and hopefully they'll pick up the book and look at our documentary. Worked with an incredible filmmaker, Steve Lance, just Steve and I. He came to me after I came out with the book and wanted to do a movie, and I wanted to so badly, having produced video and workbook curriculums on vital health issues, but I had no time. I was working 7 to 7 at the Arizona Heart Institute and radio programs like this into the night, and Barnes & Noble and Borders tours on the weekends. And one of the things, and this is another thing I'm doing now that the book and the documentary, which we've won over a dozen international film festival awards, by the way, which is unheard of. It's currently on Hulu for anybody that's on Hulu if they want to take a peek at it. But at any rate, now I'm working on a curriculum for 4th to 12th grades. It is groundbreaking, called the Out of the Box: The Adventures of Sue FO, Field Observer, and Hugh, H-U-G-H, UFO, and he's the alien, and it's going to be, from alien perspective and a human perspective, and kids thirst for this knowledge, and that's what actually prompted me to do the documentary, because some parents had seen me at a Barnes & Noble presentation, invited me, somehow arranged, I don't know how they did this, but they arranged at a middle school for me to come in and speak to the student body, and there were over 200 middle school children that were on the edge of their chairs. You could hear a pin drop. They thirst for this knowledge, and I realized that there is nothing in our history books about this topic. So I'm going to try to change that, and that's what I'm working on now with a wonderful teacher, Kate Hooker, who's right here in a charter school. We already have the kids working on it, and they love every second of it. And also a Disney illustrator, Mark Megas, down at Disney World, and some other wonderful people that are. This is really a grassroots effort to help raise awareness and educate the public through the book and the documentary, and now with the curriculum.
Lou, are you still with us?
I'm asking for your opinion, Doctor, but I'll express a few more facts or observations. Just the size of the vehicle and the lack of noise and how it can just float and all of a sudden take off so quickly just doesn't sound to me like anything we could possibly have.
Well, that's what I keep saying, so I'm glad that you're saying it too. And by the way, there were very credible people who said that it was not a mile wide. It was 2 miles wide, okay? We had people that were out in an area that was just being built, that there were realtors and there were stakes in the ground, and they knew exactly where the stakes were. And they also saw the underbelly of this thing. They also saw the orbs come off and then redock with it, and they also saw windows with beings at the windows. So, yes, I mean, there's a lot that I share in the book. I mean, I'm just telling you the tip of the iceberg here. There's a lot more intriguing information under the surface, and I hope people will pick up the book to take a peek at it. And also the documentary has pilots, has military, has Francis Barwood and astronaut Edgar Mitchell, and when you hear it from the people themselves, as well as a 911 police operator, she actually came up to me after a presentation and said, I heard that the Phoenix Police Department said that they only got a few calls, just like Luke Air Force said, right? But meanwhile, a lot of people told me that they got the number for the National UFO Reporting Center from Luke Air Force Base. But at any rate, she said, I just retired, and I'm here to tell you, we got hundreds and hundreds of calls. And would you like to hear about it? I said, are you kidding? And she is wonderful. I mean, she really, lays it out and shares what the callers told her, which was very consistent and really mind-boggling.
Well, Lou, I think, has another question, but Lou, I'm going to jump in for a second. There's one thing that I don't know if you've ever, I've never heard anybody ask you, Doctor, which is this. With all of the reports of the craft, the V-shaped craft, it blocked out the stars, and there was other descriptions that, you could almost see through the craft itself. Mm-hmm. Did you witness any of that? Did you see the V shape yourself, or were you able to tie everything together visually?
No, And I never, some of the skeptics or debunkers or whatever say, oh, they saw lights and they connected the dots and they said there was a clear. I didn't do that. It is what it is. I am trying to just deal with the data. The pictures speak for themselves. I don't know what they are. People ask me all the time, what were they? You know what? I don't know. I don't know. But I know that they were. And it's time we get this topic out in the open and we address it and we accept it and we study it so we can find out who's driving these things as well as move forward in our own evolution. So I did not see craft that I know of, okay? I saw lights that were attached to something.
Right.
So
did you see from your house overlooking Phoenix, did you see the craft that flew easterly and then south towards Tucson? Did you witness that?
I don't know. I may have.
Okay. Well, because
sure,
you have
I photographed the same thing. I took video of the same thing that people were describing statewide. In the 9 o'clock hour. So, and I have to say that, it is what it is, and that's as I described this grassroots effort. I mean, the other side of this, and certainly as a physician and an experiencer in the mix, who's really preparing the public for what's ahead? I mean, if these things are real, and I always leave the door open, okay? But if these things are real and we are being visited, because I have to tell you, and that's a whole nother story, that would be a whole nother hour, how it affected people in real time and long term does not happen with flares or blimps or conventional aircraft. Even in real time, it was amazing because 6 months before the mass sighting, the movie Independence Day was really popular. And we address this in the documentary. I mean, we're so inundated, as I said at the top, with threat, and harm. I mean, people, everybody comes from a different background, from a different upbringing, from a different belief system. Some people can't deal with this. Some people don't want to deal with this. But now we have the information there. But the fact is that, as these things were coming towards children, particularly, started jumping up and down, Independence Day. I mean, can you only imagine a mile-wide V-formation of lights at rooftop level coming towards you? And they were initially scared. But because we're so, just wired that way now because of the media and Hollywood. But as it got closer, and this is what's really interesting and really important, a calmness came over everyone, not only children, but adults as well, a connectedness to the phenomena. Some people even got a telepathic message not to be afraid.
What about that's the obvious next question. Did you feel any communication? Lou, I know you're probably still hanging on here.
Nope.
I don't know if you have another question.
This will be a second.
Okay.
I just wanted to thank the doctor and say to Jimmy, it's a particularly good show. So talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lou.
Appreciate it. But can I just to finish? I mean, as it passed over, kids wanted to chase after it and wanted their parents to chase after it. I mean, it was in real time a positive transformation. Whoever was doing this not only wanted to be seen, obviously, but also was touching people one person at a time and waking them up. And this, talk about long term, and I really get into this in the book. I mean, people changed their eating habits to vegetarian. Some people went into the peace movement, the environmental movement. It really woke people up to the connectedness to the earth and to each other and to the universe, and that we're not alone. I mean, whoever did this really in a gentle, again, there has not been not one report in over 17 years of harm, threat, or abduction associated with the Phoenix Lights. I can't talk for other things, but I can discuss the Phoenix Lights in that framework. There has not been one report. And it was just the contrary. People were in awe. People were in wonder, just like I was when I saw these close orbs. I mean, it was mesmerizing. I wasn't, not for a mini second was I scared. It was just peaceful and wondrous and awesome. And you hear that over and over. I have people tell me all the time that they feel blessed that they actually saw the Phoenix Lights. So, and it changed their life forever.
Did you?
And it's not a believing, by the way, Jim. It's not a believing.
Sure.
It's a knowing.
Sure. Did you feel a connection? Was there a message to you that evening? Or let's back up, too, with the other orbs that you had shot from your home. Was there a message there?
You'll have to read the book for that.
Oh, you can't do that. Not on this show.
Well,
no,
you know,
I mean,
we'll be talking for another hour because, as I mentioned, I had a near-death experience as a child, and what was really fascinating was that a number of other people shared with me, including other physicians, by the way, who saw the Phoenix Lights, that they had near-death experiences as children that was reawakened by the mass sighting, and I found that really curious. I thought, whoa, could there possibly be a connection between all unexplained phenomena, whether it's near-death experience, out-of-body, unexplained aerial phenomena, that have a mystical light associated with that experience? And lo and behold, when I started looking into that, I found such credible data and studies being done at university level by by Dr. Kenneth Ring, the Omega Project, which is like a 4-inch book. Dr. Raymond Fowler, if you've ever heard of him, he did the Andreessen case, as well as Dr. Bruce Grayson, who is very acclaimed in near-death experience. What's really interesting is that all of those experiences, I started calling them UPs, unexplained phenomena, and UP, UP and UP, because the experience itself, and I lay it out very simply in the book, is very similar. And I list the similarities in the book, but the most profound is the after effect, the positive awakening, the enlightenment. A person is changed to the soul. I mean, it is such a deep, deep positive transformation, and that doesn't happen with flares and balloons and blimps and helicopters. So, you know, that's another component of the Phoenix Lights that is to me, it's very, very important because it's changing our consciousness. It's really opening us up to the wonders of the universe, and that we're not alone, and that something is visiting us not only to wake us up to their presence in a gentle, non-threatening way, but also to who we are as human beings. And many, many people have been awakened spiritually, and you know, it's not a new agey thing. It's just really getting down to the soul, and particularly if we're connected and there is a spirit world. I mean, people ask me again all the time, what are these things? I don't know. I mean, are they interstellar, interdimensional, time travelers, spirit world, or probably all of the above? But now we're starting to get glimpses. And that's why I'm sharing the missing time pictures for the very first time in that study, because we've come such a long way. I mean, particularly since I came forward in 2004 with quantum physics and quantum mechanics, that, you know, we're now talking about 10 or 11 different dimensions in string theory and bubble theory. And, you know, if there's other times and spaces along with ours, then why is it such a leap to think that there might be other beings, intelligences, in those other times and spaces that we get glimpses of if we're open to it or invited?
Now, that wasn't the end of everything after the mass sighting. There were so many more after that. Oh, and let's get to that. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We're on the Dark Matter Radio Network. We are talking to Lynne Kitei, Dr. Lynne Kitei, about the Phoenix Lights. And the thing is, and you and I talked about this earlier in the week, which is the mass sighting incident is one thing, but I think the most extraordinary part of the story for me is your experiences way before that and also after that. And everybody talks about that night of March 13th. But there's more to the story. And on our site here and on your site, in our gallery, there are the photographs that you have up and posted. For me, well, actually, there's two weird things here. There's the shots here of September 16th, 2002, right? And are you ready for this? Are you sitting down?
Yeah. The
pictures that you took on my birthday, October 10th. 2001. That's my birthday.
Oh,
and that's
one month after 9/11.
1 month after 9/11, and also the date is 101001, which is kind of a trippy thing if you're into those numerology things. And I won't forget that indeed was a month after September 11th. So, but the pictures that you took on September 16th, we have these posted up here on the site, and I think it's It's the second row. Let me actually count over. It's the second row, a second to last picture of the bottom row, picture number 9. What can you tell us about this evening, and what compelled you to take? This is out of all of your
tell me
shots.
what it looks like, because I just love.
It's the 3-orb V.
Okay, the big V that's like with the top one and then 2 underneath it?
Yes.
Okay, that was the picture, actually, and I grabbed that off of the footage that we took in 1998. There was a big sighting that I mentioned a year after the mass sighting. And it was. I'll tell you, as the story unfolds, and I do talk about this in the book, it is so fascinating just how the story unfolds. And by the way, I didn't want to tell this story. I just wanted to get the data out there, but it was so boring. It was like I really had to, soul search and say, okay. And as I mentioned at the beginning, the pictures did not turn out at the time from two months before, but there was something that happened a week later after I saw Jim Del Toso on TV that night that made me take the negatives back to the professional photographer, and that's when they found the pictures that were there, which was pretty amazing in and of itself. So as the story unfolded, I mean, more and more things were just totally absurd. And in 1998, there was actually, we have very low humidity. It might be very hot now, like it's 110, but our humidity is like 4 or 9%. And we rarely, if ever, have a fog. And this particular weekend, there was a fog. And it was just absurd because we could not even see beyond our street. And my husband would joke around, oh, they could be there, but we don't see them. And it was really eerie, very, very eerie. And by Monday, it started to dissipate a little bit, but it was still pretty thick. And we were standing out on the balcony. It was still warm outside. And suddenly I see 2 lights appear right behind my husband's head. And it was, I hadn't seen anything remotely like the Phoenix lights since March 13th, 1997, during the mass sighting at that point. And I looked at them, and they were muted because of the fog out there, a really thick fog. But I went inside, and I grabbed my Canon Instamatic, and I got a couple pictures. And I had, by that time, met with the University of Arizona Optical Science Department. Actually, the head of the Optical Science Department had worked on the Star Wars project, and he ultimately became, Dr. Richard Powell became vice president of research at the University of Arizona, and he was enamored by my data, and he said, I had to get a better camera if they came back, because I was, using a cheap Instamatic camera. So I called him up the next morning, and I said, what should I do? And he said, you've got to get a top-of-the-line camera with telelens and a star filter and all this, and gave me instructions. And I went out, and the whole day I was running around just in case they came back that night. Well, they did. And those pictures are also on the website photo page, which are pretty neat pictures as well. And it serendipitously, the next day, I had a meeting at Village Labs. And I shared with them that I had seen these lights for the last couple nights, and that they looked similar to the Phoenix lights, but they were a little muted, but had a feeling they might come back a third night. So to contact, and I hadn't even met them yet, by the way, to contact the other people that had taken video the night of March 13th, which also serendipitously were north, south, east, and west. So they did. And about 8 o'clock, it was like a communication thing, which now we have, by the way, if the lights start popping up. I mean, I get calls from the media all the time as soon as there's something strange out there. But at any rate, we all coordinated and actually captured it was unbelievable. I mean, a 20-minute array of 40 miles wide of straight lines, and I mean, you look at the footage; it's just unbelievable through a fog. Mirror images, and there was one triangle way out in Buckeye that an older couple was shooting that would appear and then disappear, and then appear in the same spot, and then disappear, and then appear again a number of times. And the final finale was this giant pyramid of 3 lights in the same exact spot again.
Hmm.
And that was the finale.
And looking at this picture from September 16th, this also, to me, because I know Phoenix so well, this looks like it's closer to you and not directly over Phoenix.
Right.
Is that, am I looking at this correctly?
Okay, we have, this is 2002?
Yeah, this is September 16th, 2002.
2002, okay. There's a little bit of a story to that. That's a giant triangle too, right?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I don't have my computer on here. There's a story to this. The year before, actually, we could talk for hours. But the year before, and it is a visual, our younger son, who was in medical school at the time, he was down in Tucson, and he had one night a month that he would come stay overnight and go to classes the next day. And we actually were watching a news report after he was studying on the news that showed a crop circle that had just formed. And he turned to my husband and I, and this is like the late news, and he said, "Oh, I wish I could see the Phoenix lights." And I'm looking out our window and thinking to myself, well, if anybody would really appreciate the Phoenix lights, Dan would, because number one, he was the only person that read my 750-page journal, okay? And I didn't know what to do with it. It was just a mishmash of so much, and I asked his advice. He's very bright and just a heart of gold, and I just really value his opinion. And he said, "Mom, you have to do this. This is too important not to share, and everything you've done has led up to this." From the mouth phase, right? Well, anyway, if anybody would appreciate seeing the Phoenix lights, he would. And I was just looking out the window thinking to myself, if only they would appear, not just one or two, but if there were three, what could that be? And the report finished, and I'm talking a beat, and that's the picture before. They're close, three that are close together. Do you see that there?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The one that's there. And my husband, and he runs outside, and I'm telling you, it was so exciting for them. I mean, they fell off the chair when that popped up, and they ran outside, and my son, who was in medical school, was doing a differential diagnosis. Well, they can't be flares, they can't be balloons, and they can't be, they were so excited. It's funny to listen to the video. Well, the following year, 1 year later, he was also here, just one night a month. And we raised German Shepherds, and we had to put down our prize German Shepherd that day for she had bone cancer. And he had grown up with her, and it was really, it was just tearing us all apart. And he was studying for a test, and he came upstairs about 11:30 after he studied, and we went out on the balcony, and we're in each other's arms crying, and suddenly he says, "Mom, look at that." And we both looked up, and that's that picture that you asked me about. And he turned to me, and he said, "Mom, they're here to comfort you." That was his take on it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now,
since you asked.
Yeah, well,
but that's the truth. That's exactly what happened. And it was like, this is 11:30 at night. We weren't thinking about, the Phoenix lights at all. We were really, deep in thought and grieving, and it was just an amazing experience.
Now, what can
you tell? Coincidence.
What can you tell me about this picture that was taken on 10/10? There's a couple of things that come to mind immediately with this picture. It was 1 month after 9/11. If my memory is correct, I think. Weren't all flights still down in the United States? There was nothing. That seemed to.
Yes.
Yes. So.
Yes. Not only that, but by then, and you're asking such great questions because by then. And I actually didn't know that I had that picture in my camera. It had been sitting there until for years, until I almost published the book. I was getting ready to publish the book, and I figured I'd get the film developed, and there it was, and it was like, oh my goodness. And that picture, come on, what is that? I've asked people all the time, what is that? But yes, what happened was that by then, I had done so much research, and the message, you asked about the message. Well, the bottom line for near-death experiencers too, as well as contactees, is wake up to what we're doing to ourselves and our planet before it's too late. And if that's not a reason to come forward, I don't know what is. But at any rate, that's the message that these anomalous phenomena are giving to people worldwide. And we're watching the news. This is 1 month after 9/11, and every news station is talking about the anthrax scare. Remember that?
Yep.
Okay, that had just started. And it was scary, okay? And our older son was at law school at UCLA, and we're thinking, is something going to happen in LA? I mean, it was a scary time.
Right.
And I have to tell you, I mean, it is not in my nature to panic, but I mean, just every news station was talking about the anthrax scare. Some of them were talking about nuclear possibilities and the nuclear shelters that are here in Arizona. They were I mean, it was like, what is going on? And I thought to myself, oh my goodness, is that what the Phoenix Lights is all about? Is it too late? I mean, did they? And we hadn't seen them, by the way. I do have some sunset shots that are unbelievable of like cigar-shaped things in the sunset that are on the 35 millimeter negatives, and that's another thing. But I hadn't seen any lights, for years, and since '98. And I'm thinking, is it too late? And I'm looking out at the sky, and I'm thinking, and this is very soulful. I mean, I've been asked by Dr. Gary Schwartz, who wrote the introduction to the book. He was the head of the consciousness study department down at the University of Arizona, to go out and try to, invite them in and take pictures. I don't go there. To me, that's a circus act. But these few times that it was really soulful, that it was really deep, and I mean, I was in a panic mode. I have to tell you. I mean, I really was in a panic mode and thinking, do you know what happened here? Where are you? Why haven't you shown yourself? Are you real? What should we do? And within a heartbeat, there it was. There they were.
I have an email that just came in. I have a ton of email, but this one just ask the doctor if she ever deals with contactee medical symptoms. Do you ever have any contactees contact you because you are a doctor and they may have some issues?
Actually, because I am so busy with what I'm doing now with the Phoenix Lights and the curriculum, I've kind of stepped away from practicing medicine that way, but I still am practicing medicine. In fact, George Knapp asked me when I was presenting for the Smithsonian Museum in Las Vegas last year, do you still practice? And I have to tell you, I practice every day. I have people, and I welcome emails from people because I think it is so important. It's healing to be able to share, and that's a big reason I came forward. I mean, we got to get this out in the open. It's enough. I mean, it's if you don't share your experience, even though it might be explained, but to you it's real, it festers. And that's not healthy. And when you do share, it's very cathartic. It is so healing. And I tell people all the time, and it might take a little time for me to get back to you, but I try to get back to every emailer that emails me. And many, I've had thousands and thousands, I mean, tens of thousands of people email me to tell me their stories. And that's healthy. That's healthy. It's important that we do that, and hopefully we'll be able to get it out in the open more and more. But even if you just want to share with me, get on the website, thephoenixlights.net, and the contact is right at the top. And, tell me what you want to tell me, because there's a lot of stories out there. And it's a fascinating topic, and it's important that we really get it out in the open and we talk about it. And if you have had an experience, I know that there's some people out there that do that as their medical practice. At this point, I don't. Maybe one day I will. But certainly if you'd like to email me and share, I welcome that.
How do these messages come to you?
Now you're going back to my near-death experience.
Well, that's fine. I mean, because we have so many guests on this show, and I'm in contact with so many. I almost said contactee twice, but I'm in contact with so many, and it's one of the conversations and questions I need to get out. I need to know, how does the communication happen?
Well, actually, I give 10 ways to communicate with these other intelligences.
Hold on, let me get out my paper here. Let's start.
No. We're not gonna go through that now. But I will share that. And I don't know if there's a connection. I certainly have been told that there probably is, because during my near-death experience, and I really did have a near-death experience when I was 8 years old in a dentist's office, and had ether. In '56, they were putting ether. They were using ether at the time, which is very dangerous, and for a child particularly. And I had a near-death experience. I mean, all the ingredients of a near-death experience of being sucked out of your body, and actually I had a very short life review of my mom, who doted on me, and as you know, I was in professional musical theater at the time, and I knew that if I died, I was going around in a, and I don't want to get into all the details, but it was just a classic near-death experience, and I shot up above the earth, and what was poignant, the most poignant thing, was that now I wasn't panicked anymore that I was going to die and that I was going to, hurt my mother, but I saw 3 giant beings in glowing white robes with hoods over their heads, and I tried to see their faces, and I could not see their faces. Their hoods were like over their face. And but I felt their unconditional love for me, and they knew who I was. They just knew who I was. And as we were there, just floating, they were looking down on Earth, and I turned to look on Earth, and it was like I had a powerful telescope that could see what people were doing down on Earth, and I was watching school kids jump over hopscotch, the chalk hopscotch games on the sidewalk, and I saw a guy put out a sign to hearken the opening of his store, and I saw a milkman delivering milk at the door, which they were doing in '56. And the one thing that really got me, and we're talking, you asked me earlier about my parents. I mean, they were, we were so involved with so many different things. I mean, we were spiritual, but we really weren't religious. They never talked about that stuff. I mean, it wasn't anything that I could have been taught, okay? And I was very sheltered, okay, and very naive. But as I'm watching people doing what they're doing, I knew what was going to come next. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. If I know what's going to come next, does that mean that we don't have a choice of what comes before us?
Right.
We're talking about an 8-year-old.
Right.
And suddenly I think, well, wait a minute. We might not have a choice of what comes before us, but we do have a choice of what we do with that situation. If we take advantage of that opportunity, how we treat that person that we meet. And then I think to myself, well, wait a minute. If these beings are watching us, and remember the Watchers, okay? We've heard about the Watchers in antiquity.
Yep.
But this is my experience. Then if they're giving us a stimulus and watching our reaction, aren't human beings but an experiment? That was my thought. And with that thought, I hear a magnanimous male voice say, it's not your time, you have to go back, there's a reason you have to go back. And I have to be honest, I have been looking for that reason ever since. And I also came back with a knowledge way beyond my years that I thought everybody had. I thought everybody knew the secret. I thought everybody was empathic. I thought everybody was psychic, and I think everybody is. It's how much you develop that. So when the 3 lights appeared outside our window the night before my birthday, February 6th, my birthday's February 7th, I've had people tell me that might be connected in some way, and maybe it is. I don't know. But I do feel that spirit world is connected with all of this in some way. And if people realize that we do go on, and I actually have a picture that proves that we do, that's a whole other story, then maybe they would really take stock, because it will affect their destiny selfishly forever.
Well, what do you think
what they do to other people and our planet?
What do you think is next? Now that all of this has happened, and it seems like you're a type of vessel or something that, a lot of things have happened to you directly that were out of your control. What is next?
That's a really good question too. And just to finish up to answer your question, I have felt that these beings, whatever they are, and I always thought they were spirit world until the Phoenix Lights happened. Now I don't know, but whatever. I have felt that they have been my guides my whole life. You would ask that question, and to be totally honest and open, I have every time that I've had some kind of a crossroads or a big decision to make, I will meditate and in my own way communicate, I guess, with them. And I get answers. I don't hear voices, but I get very strong feelings to go one way or the other. Here's an example. Do you want an example?
I do.
A really good example?
I do.
And let me tell you, there are thousands of examples, but this is a really cool one. When I was touring as understudy to Barbara Eden, the I Dream of Jeannie, in Sound of Music, she was Maria, and I get a call from Leon Uris, who wrote the book Exodus, which was a giant bestseller, and also he did the movie with Sal Mineo and Paul Newman, which was a giant hit, and now he was doing the Broadway show. And somehow singing is my forte, actually, and that's another thing that I can't take credit for. It's a gift, and I developed it as much as I could, and actually helped me get the part of Florence, Arizona and Raising Arizona, which we can talk about because there's a reference to UFOs in my character in Raising Arizona. But at any rate, I get a call while we're touring to audition for the part of Karen, the ingenue. And they flew me to New York, and I auditioned for Leon Uris, and it got down to two of us. And ironically enough, the other gal, Jacqueline Mayrow, was in elementary school with me and was plucked out in fourth grade. She was a prima ballerina. She was an amazing dancer. As Baby June, the original Baby June in Gypsy in Broadway with Ethel Merman, and it got down to the two of us. Well, I happened to be starting medical school in a month. And in 1970, there weren't too many women in the classes. There were like a handful in my class of 120 at Temple University Medical School. And talk about soul searching. I mean, I really had to make a decision because if I didn't go to medical school, I would probably never be accepted again anywhere if I took a part on Broadway. So I decided, I did the soul searching, and the answer that came was that I had to finish my medical training. One day I would realize why. And I went back to Leon Uris, and we had a discussion. He wasn't too happy about it, and the show went on the road. And you know how they do previews in different cities before they open on Broadway. Opened on Broadway, closed in 3 weeks. I would have been dead meat. And that's just one of so many times where I've trusted in the guidance.
Wow.
And it's really taken me to a good place. So about a month after the mass sighting, a month or so after the mass sighting, and I talk about this in the book, I mean, I didn't know why I had what I had, and again, it's not about me; it's about the data. And but in good conscience, I didn't know what to do with what I had. And of course, my friends would say, "Lynn, if anybody can do something professional and incredible with this, you can." And I really felt guilty because I thought, should I be doing something with this if it's real? And I went out on the balcony, and I just looked up to the sky, and again, I went into a meditation and just asked for guidance. I surrendered, and I said, look, if I'm really supposed to do something credible and professional with this, just show me the way. And I have to tell you, the puzzle pieces just keep fitting together, and I'm just along for the ride. And, if it ends tomorrow and just the book and the documentary and I work on the curriculum, that's fine with me. I don't have to do this.
Well, you've also got, let's not play around here. You do have Raising Arizona in your back pocket, too. That's pretty cool.
Well, that's an interesting story, too.
Well, if you don't mind, I know that we've run over a little bit. Oh, this is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Dark Matter Radio Network. We are talking with Dr. Lynne Kitei about the Phoenix Lights and a bunch of other subjects. And we've gone over a little bit. Can you please just stay with me for a few more minutes and let's talk about Raising Arizona. Is that cool?
Yeah. Particularly since there was a reference to UFOs.
Yes.
Poignant.
Yes. So, how did you get the role? And when you think about who you were in that movie with, Nick Cage and Holly Hunter and John Goodman
and Frances McDormand. Everyone was just getting started.
William Forsythe, who just killed in the movie. He just slayed.
Oh yeah.
Now, did you guys have any idea when you were filming this that it was going to move on to be the huge cult classic that it's quoted and referenced every single day of the week? So
it is amazing. It is amazing.
Did you have any idea?
Ironic. Very ironic. Are you kidding? Not at all. Not at all. In fact,
all right.
In fact, when I first moved to Phoenix, and I have to tell you, I was doing professional musical theater since I was 8 back east, and people just knew my work, and I really never auditioned. If I could do it, I did it. In fact, I stepped in for Peppermint Patty and the touring company of Snoopy with the original Snoopy during medical school. That was my Christmas week vacation because Peppermint Patty's dad had passed a couple days before, and they needed somebody to just jump right in, and I did. I mean, that was just the way it was. And
well, did you know somebody? Did you know a producer?
Oh, well, they knew my work. I mean, I worked with through all those years. I mean, I was in my 20s already, and had worked with lots of directors and musical directors, and they knew my work, and if I could do it, I did it.
Were you living in Phoenix at the time?
No, I was in Philly. Well, we had moved to Phoenix in 1980.
Right.
And, I met some people in the field and was kind of feeling it out, what's going on here. And I was actually invited to a Johnson & Johnson wax commercial. Now, this is interesting because I was only, I was in my late 20s, and I had a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old at the time. And I auditioned, and I was scared to death to audition because I never auditioned, and it was really nerve-wracking for me. But I auditioned, and the casting director came over, and she pulled me aside, and she said, "Lynn, you did a great audition, but they think you're too old to be a young housewife." And I have to tell you, that hurt.
Yeah, you're already young.
It was like a knife through my heart. I mean, here I had played ingenues my whole life and had a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old, and they're telling me I'm too old to be a young housewife. I thought it was over. Okay. Well, she remembered that. And she also had heard me sing. I used to sing the anthem, national anthem at the Suns games, the basketball games, and the hockey games, and the football games, and so forth. And she had heard me sing, and I have like a 3-octave range, and she remembered. And several years later, I mean, this is like in '85. She calls me while I'm seeing patients in the office. I didn't even remember who she was, and they said Sonny Seibel's on the phone, and I thought, who's Sonny Seibel? And I get on the phone. And she says, "Hi, Lynn, remember me? You auditioned for a Johnson & Johnson wax commercial, and they thought you were too old to be a young housewife." She remembered. And you actually need somebody that looks a little older for this part for the Coen brothers. They're up and coming. They did the movie Blood Simple, which, whoa. I mean, if you've ever seen it.
Oh, it's a great movie. Yeah.
But at any rate, that's all they had done so far. And she said, it's the part of it's a black comedy, and it's with Nicolas Cage, and he had a little bit of a name, okay, but nobody else did. I mean, it was Holly Hunter and John Goodman, as you said, and Frances McDormand and William Forsythe. It was all their one of their first movies. And, it's the part of an older woman who has fertility drugs, and she has quintuplets, and she's like a little bird. Well, I have to tell you this, which is really a cute story. When I was in Philadelphia and I was doing health reporting at NBC, I was called to audition for the doctor in the second Rocky movie. Mm-hmm. And when I walked in, the casting director looked at me and she says, "Oh, you don't look like a doctor. You can't be a doctor in the movie." She wouldn't give me the part. So I figured, you know what? I'm coming looking like this part, right? Coming from my theater background. So I dressed exactly what I looked like in the movie. Okay. And I walk in with this high, if you remember, like a high collared shirt and a long skirt, and my hair was all up in post.
Right.
And I actually had asked a friend of mine who's an optometrist for a pair of glasses, and he gave me like a 60s type pair of glasses, round glasses. And I come walking in there, And first of all, it's Joel and Ethan Coen sitting at the table with Sonny, and she looks at me, and I look at them, and they're wearing the same glasses, and I'm coming in as a caricature, and I thought, oh my God, they're going to hate me. And she says, Lynn usually doesn't wear glasses like that. And they said, no, we like it. And I actually ended up wearing glasses in the movie. Anyway, here they had flown in girls from L.A. and New York to audition for the role, and I'm here. And there's one point where the character sees that one of the quintuplets is missing, and she screams. So these girls are like screaming, and I'm thinking, how can I do this differently than everybody else to get their attention? And I figured, well, I'll just do what I do best, and I started at a low D. And low B, actually, and started, and then screamed really loud. And they loved it. They loved it, and they loved how I did my lines and got the part. And what's really interesting, two things. Number one, which I didn't even realize that there was a reference. The movie came out in 1987, 10 years before the mass sighting. And when I finally came forward, and it was just a few years ago, a couple years after I came forward, somebody came up to me because they had shared when I did my presentation that I had done Raising Arizona, and they said, there's a reference to your character and UFOs. And I didn't even remember, and I went back to look at it. I hadn't seen it since the 80s. And lo and behold, for anybody out there, they might remember this. First of all, our house was a Jacoki Inn, which is on the property of the Phoenician. Have you ever been there, Jim?
Yep, I sure have.
Yeah, it's a really cool house. And the driveway in the movie, what happened was that they combined. I did what I just did for you, a little louder, of course. Dozens and dozens of times, and they combined that to make it look like as they're going down the road, you hear the sound, which is like pretty amazing, and then it goes up the ladder and into the bedroom, and then I turn from the crib to the camera, and it like goes into my mouth as a scream. Well, two things. First of all, after the baby was kidnapped by Nicolas Cage and Holly Hunter, they had a press conference in front of the Jacoki Inn, and one of the reporters pushes a microphone into my husband, Nathan Arizona Sr.'s face and says, there's a rumor that your son was abducted by UFOs. Is that true? And my husband says, whoa, please don't print that, son. If his mom reads that, she's going to lose all hope.
Right.
That was the line. And, of course, I feel totally opposite to that. But that was interesting, first of all. Second of all, when we did that shot, the cinematographer, who was just getting started, too, took fiber optic lenses. They wanted to make the effect like olive oil with the uvula wiggling in the cartoons.
Right. Yep.
Which now they could just do it with CGI or whatever, special effects. But thank goodness that they couldn't do it then. But he took this little teeny camera with fiber optics, little light, fiber optic lights, and put it in my mouth and had me. If you scream, your uvula contracts.
Yeah, I remember the shot. I didn't know that was actually inside of your mouth.
Well, wait a minute. Yeah. Well,
wow.
If you just go, your uvula wiggle a lot. Well, we did this for hours, where he would start in my mouth and go backwards. He would go back, and I would turn to the crib. And then after we were all done, they reversed it so it looked like I went from the crib, and then the camera went into my mouth. Okay, got it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when they did this with previews, the audience thought that it was too medical, which is ironic, and it ended up on the cutting room floor. Although you do see me scream, but you don't see my uvula wiggling. Thank goodness, because the joke around campus was that it was gave new meaning to deep throat. Okay, so which is not really funny, but at the time they thought it was. But anyway, the cinematographer himself, who did this, ended up to go on to do the movie Big, the movie Harry Met Sally, and some other really big names. And you know what else he did?
What's that?
You know what his name is? Barry Sonnenfeld.
That's right.
Filmed Men in Black.
Yeah. Barry did all of their cinematography early on. Yeah, that's right.
Is that amazing?
Yeah, absolutely. I just got, there's a bunch of texts before I let you go, a bunch of texts and an email all saying the same thing. Where are your books and documentary available? And what is, I'm looking at it now, what is the correct title of the book?
Okay, well, thank you so much for asking. I really appreciate it, and thanks for listening to all these stories.
Well, we have very, very, very smart listeners to this show, and it is indeed humbling. And so I have to just ask, they are asking, and is it available on Amazon? That's one of the questions.
Absolutely. Well, I am humbled, too. The book is called The Phoenix Lights, A Skeptic's Discovery That We Are Not Alone. It's the third edition. The latest edition is available in bookstores, Barnes & Noble, and Amazon actually has the best discount usually on Amazon and Kindle. And it's really such an experience I've learned for people to read the book, especially those that have had an experience, and even those that haven't. If they want to know what happens to someone that is a healthy skeptic and that resists the whole thing and then ultimately gets so much information and so much compelling data, and they will too as they read it, that it really opens your mind to the possibilities, the wondrous possibilities. The documentary, there's actually 3 editions out there. The original edition has all the a dozen of the awards on it. The Phoenix Lights, We Are Not Alone, and Vanguard Cinema Anderson Digital has 2 versions. And they're all the same as far as the movie goes, but we keep adding to the bonus features. And one is called The Phoenix Lights, We Are Not Alone, and the newest one is The Phoenix Lights, Beyond Top Secret. And I have to say, the bonus features, I hope anyone that does get the DVD, please take a look at the bonus features. Dr. Edgar Mitchell, astronaut Edgar Mitchell, talks about the cover-up, which I do not get into, but he talks about that in the bonus features, and we have that 92-year young French Foo Fighter pilot. His story is amazing, as well as a pilot that's in the documentary that talks about why it absolutely could not be flares. He saw this thing right over him, and a lot more. I mean, there's so much in there. It's packed with information, and I'll keep you posted with the curriculum, and everything is available on Amazon.
And so the book has been updated since 2010?
That 2010 is the last edition.
Okay, there you go. Again, I'm just reading tweets. See, our people are on this. I have to.
I so appreciate it. I can't tell you, and I hope they appreciate it. And I'd love to hear from you once you do read the book. And also, please go on the Phoenix Lights Network Facebook page, because I'm constantly updating, and there's so many similar phenomena happening worldwide, and I try to keep on it and share that with our group there, and I hope you'll join us there.
Yep, thank you, Doctor, and don't forget, we'll be seeing you on August 8th of Contact in the Desert. And as you know, we'll be broadcasting that night, and you promised me you would jump on the microphone for a few minutes with us.
Absolutely. And check out the website, too. It is packed. There is so much to explore.
No, it's a great website. I spent so much time on it this week, and the links are right there.
Now that makes it all worth coming forward. It really does when people actually look at the data. So I so appreciate that, and thank you, audience, for listening.
I'll talk to you soon. Thank you, Doctor.
Talk to you soon, Jimmy. See you soon. Bye-bye.
We'll see you in a couple of months. Bye-bye.
Sounds great. Bye-bye.
All right. Wow. Dr. Lynne Kitei. Oh, we got to thank her for coming on the show tonight. I was just looking. Okay. All right. A couple of things really quick. Again, thank you, Doctor. And don't forget, tomorrow night, Stephen Bassett, PRG, Friday, 4th of July show will be with Adam Gorightly. And I am really looking forward to that. We've been working on getting Adam on the show. I shot him an email, or I think we talked, it doesn't matter. We tried to get him on the show a few months ago. Dude didn't return email. And now he's returning email. I think he knows what time it is. It's going to be a great show on the 4th of July. I wanted to say today, I did some video shoots today here. What it was about doesn't really matter. All of that will be coming out. What? Yes, I see that. Yes, I do. I see it. I said the name wrong again. On what? What did I say the name wrong on? You'll have to text me again. Producers here are writing me really hard. And one of the things that we shot about today, and again, I'll tell you in a couple of weeks what is going on with that, but was about the base today. And I went about the Malibu deep underwater base, and some of the research and some of the questions that were raised today, it's called memory. And there were 4 points that I brought up today. And I would just want everybody to listen to me for a second. In 1492, Columbus, when he was approaching the New World in 1492, he's hours away from land. And that evening, that night, he saw a green light off in the distance, off in the horizon. And the story itself is quite famous, but if you don't know the story, this is it. He saw this light. It's a green light off in the distance. It approaches his ship and then enters the water right in front of him. And he watches the light go around the ship under the water. Everybody's observing it. And he actually put it in his ship's logs. And then there was another incident that happened on June 30th, 1967, an Argentinian ship. It was called the Naviero. And another cylindrical object was noted officially. This was a naval ship in the water, silent. And then in 1980, the Brazilian ship, the Caioba, the Seahorse, saw a gray object, but this one was an actual disc in the water. And don't forget about Bill Cooper's sighting, too, as well, which was a large disc leaving the water. And I brought up all of these points today in the video because it's all about the evidence. And when we talk about the Malibu deep underwater base, or any in ufology, which, UFOs have been discussed throughout history going back thousands of years. And it's been the same thing with USOs too as well. But it always comes down to the evidence. And with UFOs, which aren't USOs, but with UFOs, we're dealing with something that is from another planet or another solar system or another universe. That's another galaxy. And that's what we're dealing with there. And that evidence, that's a little bit different. But when we're talking about the Malibu deep underwater base, now we're talking about images with provenance, with a source. And that source is Google Earth. It's a whole nother thing. I've been receiving so much email about this. Well, what is it? What about the evidence? You know what? This is a situation where we have evidence. We have images with provenance and a source that we can point to, that you yourself, everybody listening to my voice right now, you can go to Google Earth, pop that baby into satellite mode, and go look at this for yourself. And that's a whole different situation. And I really stressed that today. Many people, they were talking about, my integrity is now in question because I jumped to a UFO hypothesis immediately with Malibu base. Well, yes, I did. I did jump to that. Why? Because the location of that base, and I said it again today, the location of that base, that anomaly, is right in the middle of probably the most documented UFO, USO, UFO activity in the United States. It's right there. So how could one not jump to that conclusion and that hypothesis? Because when I saw it, and every other researcher that has seen those images, they all said the same exact thing. Aha! Finally. So it's not my integrity. It's my opinion. I haven't sold out to anybody. It's my opinion. It's very important to get the message out. I had read a couple of other posts on another forum that's out there, and they said I shouldn't have said anything. Shouldn't have said anything at all. I should have just hushed up. I had no business going there. And my response is very simple. The exact opposite is where the damage lies. Not speaking is worse. Sitting on the information, suddenly you have nothing. That is disinfo. Not saying anything at all. It is so important to speak. And by going radical, by saying exactly what was on my mind, caused this to go into the mainstream. That's why it's a story worth covering. If I would have looked at those images and then did an article, or Mark Kovar would have written something the opposite, which was rocks 2 miles high found off of the coast of Malibu. Well, who cares? Is that newsworthy? No. No investigation, no talk, no nothing. And once again, a very important subject gets squashed. So that's why I said what I said when I said it. It's very important. Integrity is everything. And if I would have sat on that information, shame on me. And that's the truth. And that's why I did what I did. All right. I had to get that off my chest. But it was an amazing video shooting today, and I'll tell you what that is all about in the very near future. Let me just bounce around here. Let's see, what have we got going on Twitter? It's good faith judgment. Yes, absolutely. Jimmy is so right. You have to speak out and have conviction. The truth is out there. That's exactly right. Brad Kelly says, "You go, Jimmy. We've got your back." better to take a position rather than hee-haw. You know, and it's kind of funny. There are some out there in the media that absolutely hear what's going on, and they're willing to stand beside us. You know, I get that, and I'm thankful for that. And then, you know, there's others that just don't want to, poke their head out of the sand. And that, my friends, is worse. And I need you always to remember that. This show is about integrity. It's about integrity first and foremost. Wow, what a show tonight. I had a great time. Thank you, Dr. Lynne Kitei, Phoenix Lights. I learned a lot tonight. That's why you come here. By the way, learn something. Go and investigate. Tomorrow, Stephen Bassett, PRG. Then on Friday, a special 4th of July show with Adam Gorightly. Congratulations to our winners tonight for Contact in the Desert. Stay tuned. Coming up next, the Arizona UFO Show with your host, Rich Giordano. Special thanks to Keith Rowland and Art Bell. Fade to Black's executive producers, Rita Kamarian. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm and Mark D. Kovar. The announcers are Steve Harder and Mark D. Kovar. Music is this guy, Doug Aldrich. He's out in Vegas right now. Go see his show out there. Pretty cool. Tell you about it tomorrow. The show intro is performed by Space Boy. Thank you, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We'll see you tomorrow night. Be safe.